Welcome to SicEm365 Radio.
Makes it 3rd and 16, and the pass is caught. Wow, that's a heck of a catch. 4th down. Let's see if he caught this.
Yeah, it's close.
I don't know.
SicEm365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Elliott. He will get it. Touchdown Dallas as Elliott fought for it and has his 6th of the year.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
You got here just in time. Dax Milne down the sideline from Zach Wilson. And thanks for joining us. BYU touchdown, 78 yards on their opening touch of the football. First play score.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
You know, I'd like to know, on average, since we opened up the first show ever on April the 6th, how many days there seems to be some sort of breaking news or immediacy. Not just after a game, not after a win or a loss in football, mostly losses than wins, or from the start on April the 6th. How many big stories have happened, or what guests that we've had on this show have said things that were breaking news in certain ways? And today, offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes, now with Baylor. He was with Dave Aranda at LSU. And then now official Joe Wickline will not be back. Sources telling me there's been a lot of speculation. Grimes, of course, a former offensive line coach most everywhere he's been. Most recently, the offensive coordinator at Brigham Young. But now sources telling me, no question, he's not coming back. Joe Wickline no longer will be the offensive line coach at Baylor. That makes sense. Jeff Grimes is an offensive line type guy. He will probably bring in his own person along with a couple of others on staff. Good news today for Sean Bell. Good news today, it appears, for Juice Johnson. And now, guys, here we go. Craig, it's nice to have you back. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Earlier today, we launched Up Tempo 11-2 with Drake and JD on SicEm365 Radio. And Jeff Grimes, Paul, I would think, and I'm not one that gets into coaching staff and changes and all that, other than the fact we had the Fedora news off the top, is this has to be one of the top 2 or 3 guys you would want as far as who Dave Aranda will feel comfortable with.
Well, I mean, look, first of all, if you look at who's a hot offensive coordinator right now or a hot offense, well, BYU had a fantastic season on offense. They've got Zach Wilson, who's going to be one of the top probably 5 picks in the draft now as it shoots up the charts. And what's your biggest flaw on offense? The offensive line. So now your coordinator has an eye for that because he's coached it at a lot of different places over a long time. So I think that was kind of the boxes that I wanted to see checked, was a guy with a keen eye for the offensive line and someone who will coach the personnel into a scheme that fits what they have. Watching some, I just watched highlights today of BYU, and based on what Zach Wilson does and the quarterbacks that Baylor has, strong arms, kind of mobile for some of them, but tight ends, they use a lot of tight ends. They run the ball well. Offensive line is always good. I think that's, pretty much all the boxes.
Now, they have some personnel that Baylor doesn't have, at least that we don't know yet. But, Craig, your thoughts? Welcome back. Your thoughts about welcome back to a day, and all of a sudden today we have breaking news on Jeff Grimes.
Yeah, it's a good to be back. I think Paul outlined a lot of things there on Grimes. But, yeah, Zach Wilson is better than anybody Baylor's got on campus. So, as good as the BYU offense was, I'm sure there will be a lot of things that he improves upon. And offensive line certainly needs to be one of those. But they threw the ball around a lot. They also ran it well. They blocked well up front. I think they gave up 12 sacks in 12 games, which is like a 3-game stretch for Baylor. So that would, any upgrade there would be, improvement for this offense. So they've got to get the O-line right, and he seems to be a guy that can help them address that. And he's not afraid to throw the football around, which is not something that we really saw them do all that much. I think that was limited by who was at quarterback at times, because they just simply couldn't throw the ball down the field, or because the guy at quarterback didn't have time to throw the ball down the field. So there's a lot of areas to address, but it's good to know that they found their guy. BYU was a great story this year. They were, somebody that could have played upset if the playoff was actually a fair thing. And, it wasn't the the high society club that it is, then maybe we saw BYU get in there and do some damage. But they were a good story. You know, a lot of it was the quarterback. So Jacob Zeno, Blake Shapen, Kyron Drones, they're going to have a guy coming in who knows what great quarterback play is like and is going to expect that.
We will try to, and there's even 2 or 3 other guests that were going to be available for us today that have been on staff, or Jeff Grimes has been on their staff, and we'll try to do almost a This Is Your Life, along with, by the way, Baylor men's basketball with Evan Mirakawa. He's going to join us, analytics of Baylor and college basketball. Also, Eric Naline of Inside Texas. He's in his site, the one he works for, the ones that were ahead of the curve throughout most of the future of Tom Herman, with that trigger being pulled Saturday, and Steve Sarkisian joining UT as the new head coach. We have R.C. Slocum, who back when Jeff Grimes was learning how to shave was a part of the A&M staff. Phil Bennett, by the way, who's with us on Mondays at 5, he was on that staff when Grimes was a graduate assistant. Also today, we'll hear from Bob Stoll at UTEP. He was at UTEP, AD there a long time. He was at Missouri. Jeff Grimes played. Bob Stoll recruited him out of Garland. So he was on staff. That staff had Andy Reid, Dirk Cutter, and also, if you look at Jeff Grimes' history, Gene Chizik, Dan Hawkins, Ed Orgeron, among others as well. So he'll join us today at 4:15. We have a writer who covers Brigham Young. He'll join us at 4. Also today, Denton Geyer head coach Rodney Webb. They play Cedar Hill in the semifinals. They have a guy named Cooper Lands who plays for them that's a Baylor signee. And we also will hear from former A&M head coach and Packers head coach Mike Sherman, who was at A&M when Jeff Grimes was there. A lot of connections to A&M and UTEP.
He was his GA, right?
Yeah, he was. He's his GA. That's exactly right. So we have a lot of different moving parts. Also, we'll also end up with Ken Hatfield at some point this week, among others, who he coached at Rice as well.
Just a quick note on Mike Sherman. If you want to go from the offensive line tree of somebody, I think Mike Sherman is probably second to none when it comes to evaluating offensive line talent. So if Jeff Grimes, grew up on that tree, that certainly bodes well for Baylor. If you just look at the offensive lineman he had when he was at A&M, just that stretch of the first-round offensive linemen. Doesn't matter how well they played when they got in the NFL, but getting those guys into the NFL, that's a good thing if Jeff Grimes learned on that.
We'll hear from him at 5:30 today and his thoughts about what he saw from a young Jeff Grimes. I know Bennett knows a little bit about him. Bob Stoll, again, recruited him as a player as well. Craig, your thoughts, what you've seen, and again, the NFL playoffs now are official. The Cowboys are out, and whatever that was against the Giants early on, and then that game ended wacky. And then whatever that was in Philadelphia, which has a stench all over it, the Washington football team is in. We'll get into the NFL playoffs as well today and throughout the week. The super wild card weekend, not just the wild card weekend, but what they're calling the super wild card weekend. Your other thoughts about what you've seen, kind of the reaction to Jeff Grimes?
I mean, I haven't seen much reaction. I haven't really paid attention to the reaction of anybody, but I mean, it seems like a good hire. I mean, like I was saying, the offensive line should see a boost. Across the board should see a boost. I mean, they're not really, working with a lot, quite frankly. This is an offense that could not really go any further down than it was. It was atrocious to watch for the majority of the year. Not trying to be too harsh, but, I mean, what we watched on a consistent basis week in and week out was not good offensive football, and it cost them at least a couple of wins. It cost them, maybe some of the drama throughout the year of just the losses piling up. A win, here and there would have maybe broken some of that up. But, I mean, it is what it is. The season's over with, and they're turning the page. And I think this is a nice, fresh, clean sheet that they're bringing in with a lot of good things to write in along the way. And they're starting not from scratch, but basically that in some ways. And, I'm just hoping that we'll see a full offseason. I think that will help tremendously, and good cohesion amongst the staff, because that was something that, the fits there with Fedora and Munoz, obviously by the end wasn't the greatest. And so hopefully this is one where the chemistry is there, because that matters a lot with the coaching staff. And he's clearly a guy, based on what he has said so far about the hiring, that, very much sees himself fitting in with Baylor's mission and their vision. And so from a football perspective and a university perspective, he seems to be a guy that fits the bill.
Of course, the Sic'em365.com, Colt Barber and the staff. Grayson has been able to dig into specific facts about what Brigham Young was like under Jeff Grimes. He's 52 years old. He's from Garland, Texas. He played college football at UTEP under a staff, again, for at least a couple of years there. That staff was a bunch of rock stars, as I mentioned, with Bob Stoll, the head coach. Andy Reid was the offensive line coach. And also on that staff, as I said earlier, Dirk Cutter, who's now with the Atlanta Falcons.
Marty Morningway.
Marty Morningway was on that staff, who's a quarterbacks type of guy. Although I think at one year he might have been an offensive line coach under Stoll. And so that staff, and Phil Bennett was telling me this earlier today, that staff really was, you talk about a coaching tree that maybe sometimes gets completely overlooked, and that's where Jeff Grimes came from. And also on top of that, Jesse Burleson, he's the head football coach the last decade at Hardin-Simmons. He and Jeff Grimes are really close. In fact, Grimes was, I guess, on staff at UTEP when Burleson was playing there. And so he knows him very well. I had a coach tell me on the Baylor staff, you need to call Jesse Burleson. He knows Jeff Grimes very well, so we'll have that as well. Also, 254-339-1122. Mainly text messages today because we are loaded up with guest after guest after guest after guest as well. The high school football playoffs, we'll have Denton Guyer's Rodney Webb at 4:45. They play Cedar Hill. He'll join us today. They're in the semifinal round in 5A and 6A as well. Anything else, Craig? How was your week?
It was good. I needed to get away. I needed to kind of just take my brain out for a little while and let it recharge on the nightstand, so to speak. We've gone hard and heavy, I think, since we started this gig back in March, and just life and just the year that was, and needed to recharge. So glad to be back. But, my general thoughts are I'm glad Baylor's got an offensive coordinator now. That was clearly something that needed to be sewn up sooner rather than later. Good to have Up-Tempo debuting as a show earlier today on SicEm365 Radio. So congrats to JD and Drake on getting that underway and growing this operation of ours. But, I got a lot of things to say and a lot of other things as well. Steve Sarkisian's now the head coach at Texas. That's kind of a big deal that Tom Herman's out. We spent 2 years talking about it, and, here it is 2 days ago it actually happens. And after, his AD said that it was probably not going to happen, which, is college athletics for you right there. But no, that's a big move. There's obviously a lot of guys entering the draft, a lot of guys deciding to come back, a lot of transfers occurring. So just a lot to keep up with, but glad to talk about it.
We will have R.C. Slocum momentarily, Jesse Burleson, Hardin-Simmons as well. And speaking of Texas, in that story, again, Eric Nahlin will join us, InsideTexas.com at 3:45 as well. Also, Brian Etheridge was able to get a couple pretty good nuggets, and Colt just put up in the premium section, a player who's looking to transfer, possibly, well, he might, and Baylor's a part of that. A couple of notes about what he thinks about Jeff Grimes. So that is something that is on the radar as well, because we do know Baylor looking to add to the offensive line, maybe at least a couple of offensive linemen in the transfer portal at some point between now and, well, when the semester starts in a couple of weeks at Baylor University. Armstrong Sims back.
Hey, Coach, it's Paul Catalina.
Nice to have you, man. How are you?
Doing well. Sorry, doing well.
Everything good with you?
Everything's good. The show this morning went well.
Yep, it was great, 11-2. It's interesting to walk in the door, and we've already had 3 hours as we continue to grow this mothership, so to speak.
It's a full day. It's definitely a full day.
Yeah. Did you take a nap in between, or are you full throttle for us, or is
I'm full throttle. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, all right. The Armstrong Sims is with us.
I gave Armstrong.
Okay, hold on.
I gave Armstrong a bunch of different responsibilities with the other show. I want to make sure they don't get too big for their britches.
Yeah. Well, you need to watch that. Yeah.
Completely, two different animals here. Really, it's great. And now it's all about the first day. How about the first day you launch a show, and then there's breaking news with Jeff Grimes for the youngins, as I call them, from 11-2. And, of course, we've had it throughout the last 9 months. R.C. Slocum, longtime Texas A&M great, with us on SicEm365 Radio. R.C., thank you, Coach, for being a part of the show. What do you remember about a young Jeff Grimes when he came on your staff as a graduate assistant, and your thoughts about the hire for Baylor and Jeff Grimes?
Well, I have nothing but the very highest regard for Jeff. Jeff had been out at UTEP before he came to me, and I heard great things. Bob Stoll was the coach out there then and had great things to say about him. Jeff came in, and you could you could just see, over the years you had guys, and some of them would just jump out at you, and I knew he had a great career ahead of him. He was a bright guy. His wife was a former athlete at A&M, and just a well-matched couple. And he was great with the kids. He was someone that I loved. Just had him for the rest of my career. I would have taken him as a coach. He got too good too fast, so I couldn't keep him.
Coach, when you were interviewing GAs and things like you mentioned that it jumped right out at you, what boxes did he check when you're like, oh, this guy, he's not just in it for the short term?
I think the biggest thing to me in hiring, I wanted someone that's going to fit our culture. A guy that's going to come in and be a good person with the kids and be someone that I always felt a strong responsibility when you brought players to your program to have them around good mentors, people that are not only trying to make them better players, better people, and trying to develop them where they'd be good young men. And so that was always my coaches were really important to me as a young man growing up, really impacted my life, and that's why I coached. I thought if I could play that role somehow in the life of another young person, then that would be a great way to spend a career. And so in turn, I looked for coaches. When I brought guys in, to me, you can hire a lot of guys that know football, but I wanted guys who are going to come in that I'd be proud of to say, that's one of my guys. And the things that he teaches my players will be good things, the way he talks to my players. And we always had some rules about just language of the coaches and how you address young men and just that whole deal. And he fit all of that perfectly and still does. I mean, he will fit right in. He'll be a great representative of Baylor University and Baylor University football. I couldn't be more positive about him.
Coach, do you know Dave Aranda very much? And just curious that if you did, what'd you think of the two of them now working together?
Well, I know Dave, not great. We've never been close friends or anything like that, but I've known him over the years, had tremendous respect for him as a football coach. And they'll do fine. They'll do fine together. Dave will be thrilled that he's got him working for him.
The offensive coordinator position, Coach, that also is an offensive line mentality. How much and how does that fit together when someone's a former offensive line coach who becomes an offensive coordinator? Is that a really good match in your opinion?
I think it is. I think one of the guys that I quickly think about is a guy like Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs was a great football coach, and he was an old line guy that kind of knew, if you're going to throw, you've got to be able to protect. If you're going to run, you got to be able to block. And it all starts up front with those guys up front. And I've seen over the years where people that say, oh, I'm a quarterback guru or I'm this or that. But if you can't handle that, how that whole deal works up front and know how that operates, so you're going to have a hard time with offense. And so the good coaches have spent time. One of the things when I was an assistant coach, I'd coach linebackers. I started off defensive line. I'd coached on offense some. Then I coached the defensive ends. Then I coached linebacker. Then we had an opening. I said, I want to move to secondary because that's so important part of if you're going to play defense, knowing how that works. And I feel the same way about offense. The inner working of the protections with the tight end and the backs are involved in protection. And that whole thing, I think, is a great place for a guy to coordinate from. I think that'll work fine. And Jeff's got great experience. He's been in around some really good football, and I think he'll be a great fit. People at Baylor will be proud that he's representing them on the field and off the field.
It's funny you mentioned that, and as you know, we have Phil Bennett, your buddy, on our show every week. He's on at 5 o'clock today. He said the same exact thing last week, that when he's thinking about a coordinator, his defensive coordinator needs to know the secondary, and his offensive coordinator needs to know protections and the line. Coach, I guess you could say you taught Phil well.
Well, I feel good about him. He's a ball guy now. There's nobody anywhere that spends more time thinking about football than Phil does. I coached him, and then he started off as a graduate assistant with me, and then worked for me, and I followed his career. I actually talked to him this morning. My wife was laughing at us. I was driving down the highway, and we were going from one football thing to the other. And I said, well, that's all either one of us has ever done is be around football, So
I can't even imagine those conversations with him anywhere. We have him on every Monday at 5, and it is a rock star 20 minutes or so with him. I can't imagine those conversations when he's around other coaches.
Yeah, no, well, it's fun that you share with, in his case, you share those experiences for so many years and different schools, different programs. We talked today about when the new Texas coach, when he was playing in college, Sarkisian was playing at BYU, and we played them. And we went back through that game over and over. And someone else had mentioned that to me a couple of days ago. I said, man, you're bringing up scars. We went up there, we played at BYU, and we had some guys out on defense in the secondary, and then right before the half, we fumbled a punt and let them. We were kind of in charge of the game about that time, but we fumbled a punt and let them get in there and get a touchdown before the half. And then we came back at the end of the game. We scored to the go-ahead winning touchdown, and our flanker had covered up the tight end, and they not really covered him totally up, but it was enough that the official called it. So we ended up losing the game on the road up there. Sarkisian was the quarterback, and so we talked about that this morning. You never forget those things,
Coach, I know everybody does it. Certainly, they're different ways. But if you're Jeff Grimes, you're walking into this new position. Obviously, you got to get you got to get settled in, I should say. But what is kind of the first steps when walking into a new program as a coordinator? In your mind, what are kind of the first boxes you sort of check as you get going?
Well, the first thing is you meet the guys that you're going to be coaching and try to visit with them, and I think a lot of it's listen to them. Say, okay, how you doing? What's going on? What kind of years do you have? What are the things that you do well? Just try to start off with a good relationship and find out and go slowly in terms of just trying to gather information from the other coaches that you're going to be working with, and go back through. We spent a lot of time with the game tapes of this past season, and just take your time, I think, going through and say, I want to watch every game, watch every player coming back and seeing what we did, what the shortcomings were, what they did well, and just before you go too fast, get to where you know what you're talking about, know what you're doing, And I actually had that experience. I went out to Southern Cal as a defensive coordinator, so I went in there and, I didn't – when you're in a program, you're recruiting guys that come on a recruiting visit, so you get to know them and know their names, like one at a time or two or three at a time. But you walk in a new program, you get the whole team. You don't know who the coaches are, you don't know who the players are, who the manager is, who the equipment guy is. And so it's a little bit of a challenge of coming in as a brand new guy. And so you just say, hey, I'm gonna this will work out. And I started off, I took every game and went through every game one by one, and I had a program where I was matching up numbers and players and just becoming familiar with those players and what they did and what I thought was positive. And so that's what he'll do. I think the routine is pretty universal wherever you go. I brought in coordinators over the years, and that's the thing that you'd say to them, that come in and see what we got and see where we're going and see what you can do. The worst thing you can do, I think, is come in and say, okay, this is how we do this, is what we're going to do. What can we do? And let's look at where we are, what we have here, and within that, let's see how we can best take advantage of the players that we have coming back or the new ones we have coming in, how they fit in. And so that's where it really helps for someone like Jeff that's been around as much as he has. and has had the experience that he has. He knows all the things I'm telling you, and he'll come in and he knows what all the opportunities are, and I think that's where coaching comes in. I get, over the years, was always concerned, a guy comes in and says, okay, this is what I did. This is my plan. This is how I do it. Wait, it's okay to have a plan, but when you come in, you're constricted by who you have here that fits into that plan, and what are your capabilities? Are you good enough to play a lot of man coverage on defense, and on offense, are you good enough to, what kind of blocking schemes can you do, and how well can you protect, and how well can you run? And, a lot of that stuff, Jeff's been in offenses that were balanced, and he's been in some where they did a whole lot of throwing and not as much running, some of them a little more running, not as much throwing, and so he has the capabilities of adapting to whatever they have there at Baylor. I think he's been in this a long time, and he knows what the questions are and what the answers are. So I would think he'd be as good a guy as you could go out there and hire, be my thought.
RC, thank you, Coach. Appreciate you very much for jumping in and tell us about Jeff Grimes and seeing him when he was first starting, when he was a GA at Texas A&M after a year at Rice. We appreciate you very, very much.
Well, thank you very much, and good luck to Jeff. I've always thought a whole lot of people. You could measure a person how he treated other people, and you guys will enjoy working with Jeff Grimes. I can just tell you right now, you can put my name on it. He'll be a special person to work with. Those young men will appreciate him, and he'll be a good fit.
Thank you so much. What a great way to start the show. R.C. Slocum, former Texas A&M head coach. And a lot of you who are texting me about us trying to ask Coach Slocum about the college football playoff, he can't talk about it. He can't. So we would have if that was available, but he can't. So there's no reason to ask him questions he cannot ask.
I thought about asking that. Yeah. I mean, of course, asking his thoughts on A&M and just all in general. But, yeah, that's a no-no.
All right, coming up next, his name is Jesse Burleson. He's been 10 years the head coach at Hardin-Simmons. He was a player at UTEP when Jeff Grimes was there as a coach. And they know each other very well. We might even try to dig up a couple of pretty good, funny skeletons out of the Jeff Grimes storybook. As This Is Your Life on the offensive coordinator at Baylor continues later on, we'll hear from Bob Stoll, who was at UTEP, who recruited him to UTEP. Also, Phil Bennett at 5 o'clock. Mike Sherman, offensive line coach at A&M when Grimes was there. He will join us today as well at 5:30, but we'll also dig into Texas and Steve Sarkisian with Eric Nahlin at 3:45. High school football, Rodney Webb, Denton Ryan at 4:45. Evan Marikawa on Baylor and analytics and much more at 4:30. This is SicEm365 Radio. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you start the year where you feel as, well, better than you maybe felt at the end of the year. You may be worn down a little bit, maybe just not the person you want to be, sleeping issues with whatever it might be, things that are on your mind, I don't know. Or maybe even the fact you're just not performing as you want as a man and you need to get that fixed or at least figure out why not. Dr. Kent Petty, Petty Clinic, LOT.com. Go on the website. There's a phone number. In fact, there's a little, I guess you could say like a logo. You click on that little slogan or whatever. Click on that. You can call them. Or the number's there. You could pick up your cell phone and call them like that. Or contact them through the website, pettycliniclot.com. And tell them Smokey sent you. They can help you get discounted lab work, blood work, look at your testosterone levels. 1 out of every 3 men have testosterone levels that drop as you get older. Just part of life. Father time, part of getting older, and part of your levels dropping. He will also check your PSA, cholesterol, and much, much more. Dr. Kent Petty will look at your blood work, look at your testosterone levels, and if they're too low, he will put you in a program to help you build up your testosterone levels so you can become the high-performance man that you want to be at pettycliniclot.com.
Let's face it, some people just like driving around in the new. Hi, Jay here from Pickup Outfitters to talk about those truck owners that know they have naked trucks but simply don't care. You'll hear them saying something like, I'm just driving around free and easy, nothing constricting me. gross. But there is something that can entice almost any naked truck owner. Leather. I mean, they kind of go together, right? And Pickup Outfitters is an authorized dealer and professional installer of cat skin leather seats. So I'm asking you to do your part and help us end truck nudity. The next time you're near your naked truck owner friend, you can say something like, you know what would really be sexy on your truck? Leather. And they'll get that sly smile, and you know you've hit them in their weak spot. Pickup Outfitters installs factory-matching leather kits or custom kits in just about any color combination for your truck or even car. It's the sexy thing to do. You can be part of the problem, or you can create a commotion with cat skin leather seats at Pickup Outfitters. 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Learning to navigate life in the COVID-19 world has been a struggle, and where and how to get tested has been one of the biggest challenges. Impact Health Labs has your answer. If you need mass testing for your office, church, dormitory, or school, Impact Health Labs is who to call. They will come to you, conduct the testing at your location, and have the test back within 24 hours. Most major insurance accepted, meaning your out-of-pocket cost is low. So no more waiting by the phone for days to find out the results. Impact Health Labs was founded by 3 Army licensed and credentialed medical professionals. They believe in accuracy, efficiency, and doing the job right. Call 254-744-6233 to set up your group screening today. Impact Health Labs, on-site, prompt, and accurate, taking COVID-19 head-on. Again, that number is 254-744-6233 or online at impacthealthlabs.com.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one, commercial, farm and ranch, or residential. Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
It's time to be brutally honest with yourself. Look in the mirror or weigh yourself. Do you weigh as much, more, or less than you did before the holidays or a year ago? Why not start the year in better shape than how you ended it and create momentum for 2021 and help strip the negative vibes, tension, pressure, and extra pounds from the crazy of 2020? It's time right now to join Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. It's so much more than a gym, including world-class tennis courts, lessons available with pros, fitness merchandise, tanning, massage, personal training to get you over the hump. I promise you'll look better and feel better than ever before. Just need to walk through the front door. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with personal trainers Christy London and Randall Court. 40-plus group exercise classes, including twice-a-week boot camp. Spacious, clean workout room, free weights, Cybex cardio equipment, and no intimidation, a tremendous camaraderie and family atmosphere. So make this your best and healthiest year ever. It's time to react today, not tomorrow. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. Call us on the Impact Health Labs caller line at 254-339-1122. For your company's mass COVID testing, log on to impacthealthlabs.com.
Mike Sherman will join us at 5:30, former A&M and Packers head coach. And Mike Sherman was an offensive line coach when Jeff Grimes was there. We heard from R.C. Slocum. And then this is a young man that's about to join us, 10-year head coach at Hardin-Simmons. Jesse Burleson joins us on SicEm365 Radio. He knows Jeff Grimes pretty well, almost, in fact, kind of grown up in the business together. Thanks for your time. And Hardin-Simmons starts their week. They have practice. They start everything this week. They're playing this spring.
All right.
So that's also great timing.
Spring football, let's do it.
And Jesse, let's start with that, and then we get into Jeff Grimes. But when I spoke with you earlier, you're having coaching meetings. You just stepped out of one, perhaps, to be with us. Thank you for doing that. I completely forgot there was spring football. How excited are you this week?
Oh, man, I can't tell you how thrilled we are to have this opportunity. It's been a long time since we got to, as the former head coach here, Jimmy Keeling, would say, strike some strangers. So we're getting geared up for that. We started our coaches meetings this morning. Everything's gone great. Our guys move in on Thursday. We get to hit the field on Saturday, so we couldn't be more excited for this opportunity.
So Coach Grimes really, really well. You guys go back a ways. What kind of a coach is Baylor getting?
Oh man, I tell you, he is he's as good as gold. I mean, he's as good as there is anywhere that I've seen in the business, on the field, off the field, just everything that you could possibly ask for. I had the opportunity to get to play for him, and I got to be an assistant. I was his GA the year after I finished playing, and then I've got to know him and become great friends with him over the years. And just it's a home run for them, I think.
What do you think it is about Baylor that was attractive enough for him to leave, obviously, a very successful stint at BYU?
Well, number one, it's Baylor University. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I think the other thing that would be very appealing is get back home to Texas. I mean, nothing like Texas football. We all know that. But I think the opportunity to get to go to a prestigious university like Baylor, I think that would be probably the most appealing thing. And then get to know that you're going to get to coach some of the best players in America and be around some absolutely phenomenal football coaches and people that are on that staff that I know. I just can't imagine why anybody would not want to do that. So I think it was just everything kind of lined up and fell right in place for him. And I think it's going to be a win-win on both sides for them getting to hire Jeff. Not
to try to get anything that is personal between the two of you, but have you spoken with him, or have you traded a text message with him? Have you gotten kind of a feedback on where he is and how pumped up he is?
We've texted a little bit. I'm sure his phone has just been blowing up. So I tried not to make the phone call that I knew that he'd probably try to take or reject, depending on the situation, which I wouldn't have been mad either way. But we have texted, and he's just couldn't be more thrilled with the chance to get to go to Baylor and get to coach alongside those guys they have there and get to coach those top-notch players. Like I said, he's just over the moon, thrilled about that opportunity.
What would you say stylistically? Does he fit one style, or is he kind of a multiple guy?
I think he's a multiple guy. I think he's going to be very adaptable in terms of being able to utilize his personnel, being able to find the right pieces to the puzzle and be able to fit all those things together. He is one of the smartest guys I know for sure, not just as a football coach, but just as a person. But I think it's been one of those things. He has learned so much from so many great coaches and programs throughout the last 15, 20 years, that I think he's going to be able to take all of those things and be able to figure out exactly what Baylor needs and what can fit their players first and foremost, and then be able to make the adjustments from there. But he is definitely a player's coach, I can promise you that.
We've heard so much about just how he is as a man, just in your time getting to know him. I mean, how is he able to make such an impact on, obviously, we've talked to two guys, you and R.C. Slocum, and both of you have raved about what kind of a person he is. Just what is it about him that stands out in that way?
I think that first and foremost is he's real. He's a real person, and what you see is what you get. He's not going to put on an act and try to be something that he's not. He's not going to just try to. He's not going to play coach, if that makes sense. He's not going to be playing a role. He is who he is. He's going to be that guy on the field. He's going to be that guy off the field. He's going to be it every single day of the week. Unbelievable family man. Has a phenomenal family. His wife Sherry, man, I can't say enough good things about her. But I think the biggest thing that those guys are going to see with him is that he's going to coach them hard. Don't get me wrong, but he's going to coach them, and he's going to come from a place of love, and he's going to care about them more than just being a football player. He's going to care about them as a person, as a man. He'll try to teach them a lot of lessons, and then also every time they take the field, he's going to try to win every single time, because he is ultra competitive too.
You have to give us a couple of stories when both of you were younger. You were, playing, and he was there at UTEP. There's got to be a couple. Now, this is part of the deal, Jesse, because we got to be able to get him at some point later on anyway. So is there is there a funny story, or maybe even one that was kind of touching between you and Jeff when you both were younger?
Yeah, definitely. It was my senior year here at Hardin Simmons, and I was playing, and I played on the offensive line. I played center, and so we're playing a game. We're playing against Midwestern State University. We're in Wichita Falls, and we're in the middle of a tough game, man. I mean, it was tooth and nail all the way down, and I got a little, what you would say, over aggressive maybe. And I came over the pile and I just decleated a guy and gave him the what for and got a personal foul. And so after that series, we come to the sideline. He said, "Hey, I've got to ask you a question." And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Are you trying to get me fired?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Well, if you do that one more time, Coach Keeling has already said he's going to fire me if that happens again. So please don't do that again." So I learned a very valuable lesson. I did not get any more personal fouls, and definitely did not want to get Jeff fired, especially after being here. I think that might have been his first game coaching here at Hardin Simmons. So.
I think some Baylor fans will love to know the aggressive nature of you, and that Coach Grimes also saw that in you, and that maybe he coached you to be that way. Not maybe that way, but in a way, yes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he instilled some toughness in us, and he's great at the technical aspect of the game. But more importantly, I mean, the mental aspect. I think that's probably one of the things that I learned from him as a player more than anything was paying attention to detail. Man, the little things become the big things. And he drilled that in us and stressed it every single day. And I think that he probably still does that and has gotten even better at doing it for sure. But that's one of the things I definitely learned from him was do the little things right, the big things will come.
All right. Anything else, guys?
Nope.
Jesse, it's what was it like to wait through football season watching everybody else play?
Honestly, you want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
It was absolutely soul-crushing at times. I mean, I'm sitting there watching, obviously the NFL play, and then you watch Division I, the FBS schools play. You watch some FCS schools play. Even a couple of D2s played, and then you watch all the high schools play, and I'm sitting there wondering, what in the world are we doing? What are we waiting on? We have the same opportunities, the same resources, the same everything that you could think of in terms of being able to play the game, and it was just very hard to sit back and watch. So the thing that I really had to learn through that personally was I tell our guys, we'll find a way to make this to our advantage. Somehow, some way it'll be to our advantage. And I truly had to practice what I preached and learned a whole new level of patience, I think. And so it was, very honestly, it was very difficult. It was a hard thing to sit back and watch and not understand and be able to explain to our guys, this is why we're not playing, because very honestly, I didn't have a great explanation on why we weren't.
I can imagine. Man, it was so good. I'll tell you, Phil Bennett's the one that told me to call you, because he knew that there was a couple of others immediately said, you've got to call Jesse Burleson at Hardin Simmons, because he knows where some of those skeletons are in the Jeff Grimes closet. The funny stuff, the good stuff, like the 15-yard personal foul penalty and much, much more. Hey, seriously, thank you, Jesse. Good luck with your season as it launches forward this week, which is fantastic. Thanks for responding earlier to me, and thanks for your background and insight on Jeff Grimes, because it sounds like the Baylor got a great one.
Yeah, they definitely did, and I appreciate the opportunity that you guys gave me, and if I can ever be held down the road, don't ever hesitate to let me know.
You will be. Thank you very much, and good luck. That's Hardin Simmons head football coach Jesse Burleson. He was an offensive lineman, a center at Hardin Simmons when Grimes was a young coach.
Yeah, and I
love that story.
There's 2 for 2 as far as R.C. Slocum. I mean, about as legendary as of a coach as you can get in many cases, and a coach and Jesse Burleson there, who's got a program at Hardin Simmons that's about to get underway here, and kind of 2 different parts of the spectrum in some ways, but both with the same types of sentiments as far as their thoughts on Jeff Grimes. So a player's coach is what we know of, a guy who's obviously a very good person, somebody who fits well, as I mentioned earlier, with Baylor's mission and kind of their identity, and obviously put up huge numbers this past year at BYU with Zach Wilson. So Zach Wilson's going to go off and probably be a first-round draft pick and one of the top 3 quarterbacks off the board. Hopefully he can have that same touch with guys like Jacob Zeno or Blake Shapen or Kyron Drones or whoever. But yeah, I mean, there's going back to Slocum, and I asked him the question about kind of where do you start. And he said, you go back and you watch last year's tape, and I couldn't help but think of Fedora. And I was like, man, if you're Jeff Grimes, if I'm Mac Rhodes, I say, in all these interviews you're going to do, just don't say you didn't watch the tape last year. Just do not say that you did not watch the tape last year. But Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of excitement anytime there's something new, obviously, but the more we hear about Jeff Grimes, the more I like the fit and the more it makes sense.
Thanks to R.C. Slocum. Thanks to also Jesse Burleson. We'll have Mike Sherman at 5:30, Phil Bennett at 5. They know Jeff Grimes very well as well when he was much younger. Now, coming up next, there was a kind of a bombshell Saturday. It appeared as if Tom Herman was safe for another year.
Bombshell? No. Raindrop. That's all it was.
It was a trickle. and here's the thing. InsideTexas.com has been saying basically since October, don't buy all this stuff that Herman is safe. Del Conte tried to make it sound that way, although he's the one that then recommended Herman be gone. So Eric,
he was clearly saying that while he was also talking to Steve Sarkisian about being the next head coach. I mean, that was very obvious.
So Eric Nahlin of InsideTexas.com will join us. Also today we'll hear from a Brigham Young reporter that covers the Cougars and knows what Jeff Grimes has done there. And also Bob Stoll, former UTEP head coach, who was the head coach when Grimes was at UT El Paso. All of that and more. So much to get to. This is SicEm365 Radio. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram. If you don't want to go by the dealership because you're still a little bit concerned about safety or COVID and all that, listen, they are disinfecting that showroom, very, very much making sure that the social distancing and everything is clean. I was in the dealership, in fact, last week, went to see Ted Teague and also Bob Locke and discuss what's going on for 2021. The dealership is fine, but you can go online if you want at AlanSamuelsDCJ.com. You can go online, shop, and buy from your own home. You can look at new vehicles. You can find the pre-owned vehicles. You can schedule service for the car you already have. You can get what you want, including the colors, the brands, and look at all the various discounts as they start the year, whether it's employee pricing or whether it's money back as far as bonus cash or whether there's opportunities for no payments for months after months after months on into time. It's Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat as they celebrate the start of a new year at Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
At Baylor University, students can shine in their own way. Or should we say their own ways? Because there's no limit to the ways Baylor students make the world a brighter place. Whether they're leading a student organization or following a higher calling, getting advice from faculty, or taking part in world-class research, pursuing their dreams, or working toward their dream job, students find their place to shine at Baylor, where lights shine bright.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio.
The Sic'em365 Radio app is sponsored by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Your friend in the car business at Loop 340 and east of 84. Come by. Let's be friends.
All right, we will hear from Jeff Call from the Brigham Young reporter who covers Brigham Young on Jeff Grimes being hired by Baylor. Also, former UTEP head coach Bob Stoll, who was the coach when Grimes played at UT. He'll join us. Phil Bennett, Mike Sherman, and much more. We're now joined by Eric Nalin of InsideTexas.com. It appeared, it depends on who you follow or watched or read or listened to, but that maybe Tom Herman was going to be back in 2021. But InsideTexas.com was saying really for the last couple of months, just wait. Eric Nalin joins us, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and David Smoak on SicEm365.com. So, Eric, really, when was his job in deep jeopardy?
Well, really, you could say during the offseason with how he handled some of the off-the-field situations. But really, it came to a head after the TCU win, where they had to come from behind and played terribly doing so. And then also the TCU game where they came out entirely flat, lost the game they shouldn't have. Going into OU, it was a must-win. And you know, he didn't win. That week is a big time for the boosters and the AD to get together and the president and all the movers and shakers. And right then his fate was already pretty much decided. It's just that he made it difficult by winning. So had he won out, he would have kept his job. But once he lost versus Iowa State, it was basically a foregone conclusion. We knew in October that he was very likely gone.
Eric, the Longhorns are better than they were under Charlie Strong. If Tom Herman's, I'm trying to say this nicer than I did when I was talking to the phone on Smokey. If he was not the person that he was, personality-wise, would this may have been different?
Yeah, if it was Matt Campbell and Matt Campbell had the same exact record as Herman had over the last 4 years, they'd be disappointed with that record, but there would not have been a job change for sure.
Eric, do you think that Herman was blindsided by this, or is this something that he kind of thought was a foregone conclusion as well?
He was blindsided basically the weekend of Kansas State. I think when he realized that win, the big blowout win, didn't do anything for him, I think he knew right then that the writing was on the wall, and then he knew for sure after Iowa State.
So do you feel like when they did start playing better, and yeah, the Iowa State game was a game that they blew, but in the way they played against Colorado, was that the team playing for him, or was that just who they should have been all along?
Well, towards the end of the season, we started to see them, play a lot of younger players. They changed their scheme up a little bit. They started running the ball better outside. They actually started playing some of the younger offensive linemen, and they improved in doing so. I think it was about a young, talented team starting to play more. I think they were playing for the position coaches probably as much as anything. There's going to be a lot of heartbreak in that locker room as the position coaches are let go, more so than the head coach.
Well, we had heard times, where, the Sam Ehlinger, I guess it was after the Oklahoma game, they asked him, is this team being coached well? And he said, well, that's the $1 million question. So those things had started to leak out in the locker room, and that's hard for a coach to wrangle back in, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you see players that realize that they probably haven't been fully optimized, fully developed. Like I said, we saw it in the bowl game where, their backs are against the wall. They have to change their scheme up because of the personnel, and they start playing better. Well, they started playing people in the right scheme, the proper scheme. Sam's career, as good as it was, it could have been so much better. And I think there's always going to be a little bit of frustration with him because of that.
So I remember when Herman was hired and there was a lot of people rejoicing, felt like he was the guy for the job. Obviously, that's not the case. Why are Texas fans, or why should Texas fans be excited about Steve Sarkisian, and why do you think, if you think, he can be the guy that actually does right the ship?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely reason for optimism and excitement. You know, offense always excites fans. I'm waiting to see what type of staff he puts together. If he has a really good defensive coordinator, has a really good offensive line, he's going to recruit well at that point, and I think he's going to score a lot of points. You know, the floor at Texas should always be 8 or 9 wins if they're just embracing the cutting edge of offense. You know, if you're recruiting the kids in state and then forcing them into Big Ten offenses, you're not maximizing them. And I think Tom Herman was kind of set in his way of how he was doing things at Ohio State, which, worked. He had elite talent to do so. But he was pretty stubborn in adapting to what he should have been doing. If he would have let Mike Yurcich do what Mike Yurcich wanted to do the whole time, he would have kept his job. I don't think Sark's going to have those same sort of problems. Tom Herman really wasn't that far from being a really good head coach, I don't think. But I'm just not sure that he was ever going to get over the hump and kind of get out of his own way. Sarkisian, of course, he hasn't been the head guy in a long time. Of course, he had his unceremoniously dismissed from USC due to his drinking issues. So there's definitely some volatility with it. But if he hires a good defensive coordinator, the offense is going to be there. He has plenty of talent to work with. That's one thing that the Colorado game showed. So I think from a talent standpoint, he's going to be perfectly fine right out of the gates. And recruiting is going to be, if he puts a good staff together, they're going to be recruiting as well as they had in a long time.
He had the back of the players, or at least he took their side, it seems like, in a lot of the issues that were going on during the spring and the summer. Did the players like him? Did they have his back?
Well, at the time, I asked about that. I asked some team sources, do you feel like it's genuine? And there was a lot of appreciation for him doing that. They didn't even care so much if it wasn't genuine. They still knew that he was kind of putting his tail out on the line for him. But I don't know that they had his back. He was kind of distant. His coaching style works if you're winning. But he's more like an Urban Meyer or Nick Saban, and that's fine. But you have to win like those guys. He never really got close to his players. He preached family a lot, and I think a lot would kind of laugh at that. And that was kind of it. Didn't build great relationships with the players, and you could see a lot of his ex-players that were kind of they were saying Charles Omenihu and some of the others, Deshaun Elliott, we're not sad to see him go.
Eric, Sam Ehlinger officially declaring for the NFL draft, and obviously Casey Thompson was quite the buzzworthy name on the night of the bowl game. Is there a sense of Texas fans, kind of ready to see something new? I know here in Waco, people appreciated Charlie Brewer to an extent, but they're kind of excited to see something else. Is that the case in Austin? And just your thoughts on Ehlinger leaving and his career at Texas?
Yeah, I think that's probably the sentiment of much of the fan base is thank you for your playing. Everybody knows that he gave it his all. And I think kind of like Tom Herman, just in a different way, he took the program as far as he could. And it's time for some new blood. Obviously you see a little bit more downfield passing attack with Casey and also Hudson Card. Those two are going to have a spirited battle in the spring. To really bring alive some of these schemes, and especially Sarkisian's where the ball's thrown down the field a lot, you're going to need a different type of quarterback. Ehlinger was really good for what Herman wanted to do, but at the same time, he took way too many shots, and you could see over the course of the year, he kind of lost his accuracy and his ability to throw the ball downfield. At one point, he had a sore left hip and a sore right hip, and he couldn't throw the ball more than 30 yards downfield accurately. And Herman was saying he's not injured, and I'm like, we all know he's injured. Come on, man. And then after 2 weeks, he comes back and has 2 weeks and a week off. He comes back and has his best game of the year after he rested. So I think everybody's appreciative of what Sam did, but they're excited for what the future brings.
Will they still have to monitor their urine?
I don't know. I mean, that was a weird thing that Herman came in doing. Man, if he would have just handled things differently, that he could have been really big at Texas. I'm sure of that. He ran off a lot of those guys, those juniors that went early would have come back had they had a better relationship with him. And then in that second year where they went to the Sugar Bowl, it could have been a much better year with Malik Jefferson out there and Deshaun Elliott, some of those other guys. It could have been a special year. You should always get a sense of the room before you go in there and try to tear it apart.
Do you know much about Jeff Grimes at all, Eric, just from covering college football the way you do and the hire from Dave Aranda today?
I'm not very familiar with him. He was at Auburn for a while. I remember. I think his name had probably come up from thinking of the same guy when Mac Brown was coaching, but I'm not too familiar with him otherwise. So, in the end, and Craig kind of alluded to this as well, is this something that inspires the UT fan base because it's not Herman or because it's Steve Sarkisian? Well, definitely, not Herman galvanizes everybody. And then, are you excited about Steve Sarkisian? That's a bit of a mixed bag. I'm definitely picking up on more excitement because offense tends to sell. Yeah. But that's something fans don't always put things in a proper context. What he's doing at Alabama is a little different than what you're able to do anywhere else. He's got different types of athletes that he's working with. But I think there's way more excitement than not excitement. I would say that. Thank you very much, Eric, for jumping on with us. Appreciate your insight. Congratulations on being ahead of the curve throughout the last couple of months or so, and longer than that, but especially on this story. Thank you. Thanks, I appreciate it, guys. That's Eric Nahlin, Justin Wells, Craig, someone we know well that also is on that staff with InsideTexas.com. Coming up next, Paul set us up with a reporter who covers Brigham Young, and then former UTEP head coach Bob Stoll, who recruited Jeff Grimes from Garland to play at UTEP. That plus much more. Aaron Marikawa on analytics and Baylor and players and where they are with what he started to do, or some programs are contacting Aaron on what he does. And then also at 4:45, Geyer head coach Rodney Webb, plus Phil Bennett and Mike Sherman on Jeff Grimes, SicEm365 Radio. IdealMRI.com. I went by the Central Texas Marketplace the other day, and I drove through that part where they're just on the left-hand side as I'm driving out towards the access road to get on Loop 340 and Highway 6. Man, they got a great situation there. But first of all, they can help save you a ton of time and money. A lot of us are impatient. I don't know about you, but I'm very impatient. If you go to Ideal MRI, set up an appointment to get an MRI, you won't sit around for a long, long time until it's your time. They won't say be there at 11 and about 12:45 you get an MRI. They also will make sure that you don't pay more than $497 or maybe less for your MRI, when an average MRI can cost you about $1,100. So you can imagine if that is the average, how much higher it can sometimes be. Ideal MRI will work with your insurance company, help you with that as well. But the bottom line is they will give you what you need in finding out what is hurting more than just a bump or a bruise. Something that's a pain, something that aches enough where you can't sleep or you can't walk or you can't sit or you can't function. And if your doctor suggests an MRI, then ask them about Ideal MRI, because they will take care of you in every way possible. And they also have state-of-the-art technology. When I spoke with Dr. Maxey the other day about 2021 and SicEm365 Radio, he said, we're as on board as we were the first day you started, April the 6th, and we're on board with them in the Central Texas Marketplace, IdealMRI.com.
With your Ram truck from Allen Samuels, you may not have to plow through snow and mud or pull heavy loads, but you could. During the Big Finish year-end event, you get a Ram deal like no other. Employee pricing for all, 0% for 84 and no payments for 90 days. Ram 1500 Lone Star for Christmas. No other truck comes close. And ask about Big Finish pricing on Ram Heavy Duty and Ram ProMaster for your business. Happy holidays from Allen Samuels.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine has their easy-to-access drive-thru open and convenient and clean in-store location on the corner of Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. Riverbend Liquor has the best and most extensive variety of craft beer selections in Waco, and Balcones whiskey, including single malt, pot still, baby blue, rye, brimstone, and the all-new lineage in stock. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, family-owned and operated, and a hidden gem in Waco on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street. And find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It's a new year. Time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Hi, this is David Smoak, including what you'll need to watch the NFL playoffs and Super Bowl. Ribs, sausage, links, brisket, chicken wings, bags of various snacks, and customized appetizer trays. Don't forget to order something now for the perfect home-cooked Valentine's Day dinner, which is closer than you think, including combo packs with ribeyes, fillets, and lobster tails. Live crawfish season is just around the corner. Absolutely the right time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Waco Custom Marketplace, your family meat market, butcher shop and bakery with everything baked fresh with old-fashioned farmers market atmosphere. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio.
You got here just in time. Dax Milne down the sideline from Zach Wilson. And thanks for joining us. BYU touchdown, 78 yards on their opening touch of the football. First play score.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, back for this 4 o'clock hour that will also include Bob Stoll, former UTEP football coach, who's the one who recruited Jeff Grimes to UTEP back when he was playing football in Garland. Evan Miyakawa will join us today on analytics and Baylor basketball and college basketball at around 4:30. We're now joined by Jeff Call from the Deseret News, Brigham Young reporter, covers the Cougars, and also have him on to discuss the news that Jeff Grimes is headed to Baylor and will be the offensive coordinator, is the offensive coordinator at Baylor University. So it was a hell of a year, Jeff, no question about it, with Brigham Young. What does the news of Jeff Grimes mean? Would they just replace him? But what kind of a loss is it for Brigham Young?
Well, obviously, I mean, Jeff Grimes did an incredible job at BYU for 3 years. I mean, he inherited, one of the worst offenses in the country after that 2017 season. And I mean, it took some time. It wasn't, it took a little bit of time for things to get rolling, but, Jeff Grimes was one of the people that was instrumental in recruiting Zach Wilson to BYU after his hiring. And so he deserves a ton of credit for what he accomplished at BYU. From BYU's end of it, I think, it is a loss, but I think Aaron Roderick, who's been the passing game coordinator and a quarterback's coach at BYU, he was brought in along with Jeff in 2018. He's got a great pedigree. He's got a lot of experience. He was the offensive coordinator at Utah in a previous stop. And I think from BYU's perspective, I think a lot of the thought is that things will continue to roll along smoothly. There won't be a huge transition. I'd be shocked if he weren't BYU's next offensive coordinator.
What was the key outside of Zach Wilson for the BYU offenses? I mean, in this year, it's just explosion.
Yeah, I think, again, it was putting together the pieces over the last few years, recruiting the right guys. Dax Milne had a spectacular year. He was a kid who was a walk-on, came to BYU. Not a whole lot of fanfare or hype around him, but he just gradually got better. He's a very hardworking kid. Another receiver, Gunnar Romney, very highly touted receiver out of Arizona. He came to Provo, and he started to live up to expectations. And the biggest thing to me, though, is with Jeff Grimes' background as an offensive line coach, one of the best offensive line coaches in the country, he was able to really shape this offensive line, not only with recruiting, but just with player development. And when you see an offensive line that has so many guys with so many starts, so much experience, the continuity of playing together for 2-3 years, and this season just kind of came all together, and we saw that. And Jeff Grimes, obviously due to his background, had a lot to do with that offensive line and its development. And I guess you could say this across the board in college football, but especially at BYU, whenever you see BYU have a special season, you obviously point to a great quarterback, but you also got to point to a great offensive line, and that's exactly what BYU had this year. This was probably their best offensive line they've had in many, many years. And Jeff Grimes deserves a lot of credit for developing that.
Jeff, we've heard from R.C. Slocum and also a former player in GA for Grimes, and so glowing in their talks about him as a person and his personality. Did you get to know him very much? And if you did, just what were kind of your thoughts on Jeff Grimes as a person and the type of coach that he is?
Oh, he's a top-notch quality person. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's a good family man. He's a religious man. He fit in very well here at BYU, even though he's not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which owns and operates BYU. He's a religious man. He fit in. I mean, the principles and the way he carries himself and lives his life is very much in line with what's expected at BYU. And I think he and his family enjoyed it here, and it was a good fit. And for me personally, getting to know him, I really enjoyed conversations with him. I mean, because he won't just answer your question, just to answer the question. I mean, you can tell when you ask him a question, he thinks about it and internalizes it, and will give you a really good, honest, deep answer. And he's just one of the most genuine coaches that I've ever had the pleasure of interviewing and working with. And I think you guys down in Waco are in for a treat with him, because he's that kind of personality. It's very down to earth, but when you want to ask him deep questions about football, he'll give you really deep answers. And I learned a lot about football from him.
You know what? We've heard that about somebody else who's the guy who hired him.
Yeah, Dave Aranda.
About Dave Aranda. Mm-hmm. About as genuine a person as you could imagine, but he can get very deep, and that light comes on when you want to discuss X's and O's in football. Aranda becomes almost like a different animal, but genuine as a person with the kind of person that he is. Now, how good I know he obviously was very good developing what they did with Wilson, also the offensive line. What about as a play caller?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jeff Grimes, I think it would even tell you that he learned on the job, and he got better and better as time went on. As we all know, when he came to BYU, this is his first chance to be an offensive coordinator, and he's really excited about the opportunity to kind of put together the things that he's learned over the years. And one thing that impressed me about Jeff Grimes when he first arrived, I remember that first spring ball that he was BYU's offensive coordinator, and he was talking about, Fesi Sataki, the receivers coach, and Aaron Roderick, the passing game coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and how they got into a room. And these other guys confirmed, what he was saying. I've talked to them about it as well. But they got in a room, and Jeff Grimes put away his ego, and he obviously has his own ideas and philosophies. But what impressed me was that he really did put aside his ego and said, guys, this is our offense. Let's figure out what's best. Let's throw in all the ideas that we have, that we've, learned over the years, the philosophies we have, and let's put them together, and let's come up with what is the best offense for the personnel skill set, for what we want to accomplish here at BYU. And, that really impressed me, because I think being a first-time offensive coordinator, you might be a little insecure about, you want to make that impression, you want to make that big splash, prove that you're worthy of your hire. But, he kind of took the perspective of, hey, I'm open. I want to hear your ideas. This is not just me. This is not just my offense. And they really worked together, and they cobbled together an offense with input from a lot of different voices in that room. And again, it took a process to make it as successful as it turned out to be. But I think that's kind of the way he works. I don't think he's, got this huge ego where it's going to be about him and this is his offense and you do it my way. I think he really does listen, not only to his assistant coaches, but the players. I know that BYU's players many times have said how they love playing for Jeff Grimes because he would listen to their ideas, to what they thought might work, and he was able to implement some of those things. And so you tie all that together, and it's I imagine he's very enjoyable to work with and work for because he's kind of got that mindset.
Hey, Jeff, I know it's a bit of a ways out and the world's still very much filled with question marks, but any plans on heading here to Waco to see Jeff Grimes and the Bears when BYU comes to McLean Stadium next October?
Oh, I'd love it. Yeah, I've never been to Waco before. I think the only time BYU's played there, I believe it was the start of it was before my time, but it was back in, I think the first game of the 1983 season. And Steve Young was BYU's quarterback, and I think Baylor pulled one out against BYU, a high-scoring game. And then BYU did not lose the game again for 2 years after that, winning the national championship in '84. So, yeah, it would be great to get down there to Waco and see BYU and Baylor kind of renew this series.
Man, I hadn't even brought that up.
Yeah,
on my radar because I'm still trying to recover from 2-7, and not so much the record, just recovering from this year as a football season.
Coach Taff will still talk about that game. As a matter of fact, Jeff, if you want to do a story about that game before you do, call Coach Taff, and he will give you some great stuff on it.
That's a great idea. I'd love to do it. I know that he and Lavelle Edwards are really close friends for many years, and I'll have to reach out to him. That'd be great.
Thank you so much, Jeff. We appreciate the insight. It's what we've heard, and not just because people who know him or whatever. I mean, I remember we've had people on that others have been hired at Baylor, and they're like, this is great. Appreciate your time. Good luck. And one hell of a year. It would have been a heck of a year for Brigham Young to have been a part of that tournament. But we know that obviously that didn't work out. Thanks for your time.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Jeff Call. Deseret News covers Brigham Young. I'm talking about not only the memory of the Brigham Young, but I'm talking about they play each other. That doesn't even register with me because I haven't even thought about next year or this upcoming football season.
This last schedule got a little jumbled.
It's like, you think they're going to play? Yeah. So I
don't remember who they were supposed to play before anymore. Like, it's all gone.
Louisiana Tech, Incarnate Word, and
we were supposed to play Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Yeah.
That seemed like 4 years ago. All right, so we're going to hear from Bob Stoll. In fact, we can do it now.
Yeah.
He was a coach at UTEP. He eventually went to Missouri. He has been the AD and now just retired at UTEP. In fact, Mack Rhodes was under his wing, under his umbrella in the athletic department for like 8 years, and a young Mack Rhodes hired a guy named Jeremiah Dickey. And that was the news over the weekend. He's now the new AD at Boise State.
Yeah, congrats to him.
Yeah.
Congrats to Jeremiah. That's a big loss for Baylor, big loss for Mack Rhodes. It'll be interesting to hear what he says about Jeremiah's departure, but one that was to be expected. I mean, that was going to happen sooner rather than later. He was not going to be, assistant or senior associate AD for forever. So great hire for Boise State, in my opinion. He's also got to hire a football coach now, I do believe. So that'll be his first big job. But he's got plenty of experience with that, being at Baylor the last 4 years, because they've had to hire a couple of guys.
Yeah. By the way, I think it's a great stepping stone for JD onto the job that I want him to have.
Yeah, you just won't let that go.
I was simultaneously like happy and disappointed because Florida State's gonna be hiring a new guy in like a year.
He wasn't going there. He told me that a long time ago. He didn't want to have you blowing up his phone every 5 minutes.
I'm going there with him. He's gonna have to hire me.
All right.
I take that job, but Paul would text me.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Oh my goodness.
No, he just have to hire me, and that way I wouldn't just bring me there to Tallahassee, and that's over.
How about this coaching staff that Bob Stoll had? And he gets into this a little bit. At UTEP, Dirk Cutter, who's now with the Atlanta Falcons, who was at Arizona State and a couple other places. Andy Reid was an offensive line coach. In fact, when Jeff Grimes was there, that was for a year or two his offensive line coach, the Super Bowl champion coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. Marty Moringway, who was the head coach with the Lions. San Francisco was on his staff with George Seifert. I think that probably on that staff as well.
Dave Toub.
Who's won Tobe, I think it is.
Yeah.
He's won a Super Bowl ring. Reed's won a ring. So that was Bob Stoll at UTEP, and they recruited some kid named Jeff Grimes, a big, tall, lanky offensive lineman out of Garland, Texas, and I had a chance to speak with the former UTEP head coach about Jeff Grimes and his staff earlier today.
Started looking back through Jeff Grimes' career and his time at UTEP. You were the head coach there, had a great staff there with yourself. What do you remember about Jeff Grimes, the football player?
Well, we had him for 2 years before we left and went to Missouri. He was tall. He was relatively thin as far as offensive line is concerned, but very athletic, real bright guy. Just a great kid. You know, he was just a hard worker and like I said, pretty young. He was a guy that we felt like could get a whole lot bigger than he was, when we recruited him. But very athletic, tall, good-looking kid.
What a staff you had, and what a staff to play football under or coach with Dirk Cutter, obviously Andy Reid, who's had the great success in the NFL, and many others as well. You assembled yourself quite a staff, and so I guess that Andy Reid was there for a year or two when Jeff was playing as well.
Yeah, I hired Andy actually the year that Jeff came in. So Andy Reid was offensive line coach. Dirk Cutter was the offensive coordinator. Dave Tobe was our strength coach. Marty Morningweg came in as a graduate assistant, and later on in Missouri, I hired him full time. And Ken Flagel is the linebacker coach of the Philadelphia Eagles too. So 3 of those guys have already had Super Bowl rings. Tobe and Flagel and Andy Reid have all had, Super Bowl rings, and so we talk to those guys all the time. They're there, and then when we went to Missouri, eventually, when Andy Reid left to go to Green Bay, then I hired Marty as a full-time, offensive line coach at that time, even though he was pretty much a quarterback guy. So, yeah, we had a great staff there. And then Mo Lattimore was defensive line coach, and he ended up going with Bill Snyder after we left Missouri. He was with him until the time he retired. So we had a great staff.
What did you see, or did you see, or can you see in a young man like Jeff Grimes any kind of opportunity that one day he might be a coach?
Well, the coaches, they all seem to have kind of the same qualifications for early. First of all, they love the sport. They're always investigating it. They work hard. They have great character and work ethic and a really good attitude. And those are the guys that usually, enjoy the sport, and when they're done, continue to move on to coaching because that's their real passion. And certainly, he's been very successful, in his career. He's been to a number of great places. And actually, one of his big breaks, Dirk Cutter hired him back at Boise and then took him to Arizona State. As his offensive line coach, which I think was a big break for him when he decided to go into college. I know he's a GA for a couple of years. I know he's a GA, I think, at Texas A&M, I think. And then I know that Dirk hired him as offensive line, and he was there for a year or two. And then when Dirk went to Arizona State, then he took Jeff with him. So that was, I think, one of his first big breaks. But from that point on, he's been to Auburn and BYU and Colorado. He's been around, LSU.
He's been under Dan Hawkins. He's been under Gene Chizik. He was under Ed Orgeron. He was at LSU for a little bit, I guess, even when Dave Aranda was there, who's now the head coach at Baylor. So there's the tie-in there that at one point he was at LSU when Dave was there, and then Brigham Young, and he did a great job with Wilson, the quarterback at Brigham Young. Do you recall the last time you've been able to talk to Jeff at all just about his coaching career and climbing the ladder?
The last time I think I've seen him, I think I was at the National Convention. It's the last time I just said hello to him and stuff and just talked briefly with him. So he's been around a lot. And, after I got into coaching, I was athletic director for, 20 years. So I didn't have the ongoing contact like at the conventions like I usually did. So, but, he was just a great young man when we had him, and of course we had a great staff. And I told you before, Mac Rose worked for me for I think 8 years.
Yeah.
At UTEP, and Jeremiah Dickey, who has been at Waco and now became AD at Boise. I mean, that's a great break for him. I mean, he's a really bright young guy. He started out at UTEP too with us there, and then working with Mac at UTEP, and went on and has been with him for a long time. It's interesting. Jeremiah's grandfather, Dr. Dickey, was like best friends with Coach Haskins, legendary, Hall of Fame coach with the '66 National Championship team. That was one of Coach Haskins' best friends, Dr. Dickey, and Jeremiah, I think, was his grandson. So he has a big El Paso background there, for sure.
Isn't that crazy how it all ties in together with what Mac was at UTEP, then Jeremiah's now going to Boise State, and here we are with Jeff Grimes now becoming the offensive coordinator at Baylor. I know you've kind of followed him a little bit about what he's done over his career. You mentioned with the big break at Boise State with Coach Cutter. What do you see in Jeff Grimes? You feel like that Baylor got a good one today? Oh yeah,
here's a guy that's been not only the experience he's been with great coaches. The one thing, you get your break, you get an opportunity to coach in a major university, and so he gets Dirk Cutter for 5 years. But then, like you said, you listen to Hawkins and Chesney. I mean, all these different people that he's worked with, you grow and learn. He starts out as an offensive line guy, but ultimately he becomes, much greater than that, becomes a coordinator. And every time he goes to a new spot, he learns, from the head coach and from other assistants. And so you grow. And he's certainly had so many opportunities to grow from all the coaches he's worked with.
That's Bob Stoll, longtime head coach in college football. He was at Missouri, UTEP. I think he was at UMass, and then was the AD for the longest time. And he hired a guy named Mac Rhodes, who was there for about 8 years before Mac became a full-time AD at Akron, and then Houston, and then Missouri, and now at Baylor. And a young Mac Rhodes, as I mentioned earlier, he was the one that also hired Jeremiah Dickey, who was just wet behind the ears, who's now the head AD, at Boise State. When we come back, Evan Miyakawa, analytics, college basketball. Scott Drew and the Baylor staff were ahead of the curve on this, and now you hear about analytics all the time. Maybe even you see it a lot. When do you go for two and all that, and then baseball's lit up with it, right? Evan Miyakawa is a Baylor graduate. I think, Armstrong, he's a great friend of yours. He's working on his doctorate. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And he's going to join us. I just happened to start seeing a lot of these stats and figures and data that he was releasing on his Twitter feed. And I said, hey, can you come on with us? And college programs are picking up on what he's doing. He will join us next on SicEm365 Radio. It's been a day of a lot of conversation about the new offensive coordinator, Jeff Grimes, at Baylor. But sad news today as well. Waco Custom Marketplace has been a sponsor of this show since day one. We have known, Paul, Craig, and me, we have known the Bauer family for a long, long time. They were sponsors of us when we were on the radio across the city, across town. In the last about like the last week or so, David Bauer caught COVID and overnight passed away. It is a terrible story because the Bauer family loved Baylor University. The Bauer family loved what we did with this show, and they were a part of it from the ground level. And I even asked Brian, is it okay if I bring up your father? And Brian has shared some things with me on the text messages from this afternoon as well. He grew up in Waco, was a Baylor fan, grew up going to all the games. He said to me, Brian just said, I can't believe I have to go to games now, Baylor games, without my father. We always laughed at him because tears would run down his face when we scored pretty much every touchdown. He loved you all. He also, I've been talking to him, Brian said, in my head about the new offensive coordinator at Baylor. He loved Baylor football more than me, and I believe that sometimes I love it as much as anybody. He would go to the games no matter what. even when Baylor was not very good. My father, David Bauer, and Brian Bauer, who's a part of this sponsorship as well, they went to Baylor games even when they weren't very good. So if you don't mind, for 1 second or two, is kind of just stopping for a second and praying for the Bauer family. David Bauer passed away overnight. Brian sent me a text earlier today. He loved Baylor University. He loved this show. And we love the Bauer family for what they represent. So be thinking about them and his mother and also everyone else in the family. And SicEm365 Radio.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Waco's newest gym, Halo Athletic Center, 5725 Bagby Avenue, right behind Region 12 and across the highway from the Central Texas Marketplace, where motivation, inspiration, and hard work are the driving force. State-of-the-art equipment, indoor and outdoor track, locker rooms, showers, yoga and bar classes by Duality Yoga, bod pod potty composition analysis, and registered dietitians, all under one roof, where we rise above. Come join the Halo Athletic Center and be a part of the change, your change.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. And this football season, you need to stop by on game day for curbside pickup or stop by their tent next to Sic'em365 at Brazos Parking for your pregame refreshment. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio.
The Sic'em365 Radio app is sponsored by Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Your friend in the car business at Loop 340 and east of 84. Come by. Let's be friends.
You know, it's interesting. What I love about Twitter, and there's a lot of things I don't, but what I love about Twitter is sharing things, but also being able to learn something. And I started to watch this feed, and I didn't know much about Evan Miyakawa. So finally, I just contacted him by direct message, and I said, hey, I see all the stats and the data, the analytics when it comes to college basketball. Baylor, of course, ranked number 2 in the country with the great team, and they play Oklahoma Wednesday night. Oh, Umoja Gibson. Umoja Gibson was the Big 12 Player of the Week. He's from University High, had 8 threes in that win against West Virginia, and Baylor plays Oklahoma Wednesday night. That could be interesting. So Evan said, yeah, I can come on the show. I've heard a lot of great things about him. We know Scott Drew and company have been ahead of the curve when it comes to analytics, and Evan Miyakawa joins us on SicEm365 Radio. And Armstrong, a great friend of Evan's. You want to say hi to your friend?
What is up, Evan?
Hey, Armstrong.
How's it going?
What's up?
So, Evan, how did you get into this? College basketball, advanced analytics, it seems like it has kind of picked up the pace, not just in basketball. Baseball, of course, a few years back started the trend. How did you get into this? What interested you here?
Yeah, so for me, I've always had a love for both sports and statistics. I'm working on my PhD currently at Baylor, and for me, this just started as a fun side project, just in my free time, combining the two things I love most, statistics and sports. I've always been a huge college basketball fan, and so this just started out as a project for me, applying what I know and trying to find some interesting results, and it's just really taken off.
So when you're trying to extrapolate out these analytics, what's your overall goal, to find out how good a player will be or could be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So these ratings are supposed to be predictive in nature, kind of similar to KenPom. Think like KenPom, but for players as well as teams. And so the goal is to have like an offensive and defensive rating for each player, and you can combine those into one single number that's supposed to basically project how well they're going to perform or their impact on the court for their team going forward. And so because of that, it doesn't just purely look at box score stats and that kind of thing. It also incorporates some preseason projections that are baked in, as well as like the history of that player and recruit ratings. And there's a lot of different things that go in the formula.
So, for example, what do the numbers tell you about a guy like Jared Butler?
Jared Butler is an amazing guy. He's actually first in the nation right now in the player ratings on my site. The metric is called Bayesian Performance Rating. And the thing about Butler is that he's just so well-rounded in all aspects. He's the only player in the nation who has a top 5 rating on both offense and defense at my site, which is pretty remarkable. So, yeah, I mean, there's no question Butler is far and away a huge piece for Baylor, and certainly will be on the national, at the top of the national landscape for this entire year for sure.
Evan, you obviously know Gonzaga. Baylor ranked 1 and 2 in the polls, and they were going to meet back in early December. That didn't work out, but they are ranked number 1 and 2 and seem to have separated themselves, although the Big 12 is a landmine of one game after another. So when you look at the names of the players on your list and all the data and stats that you put together, it's not surprising then that I believe, is it like 4, 5, or 6 of the top 10 or 12 are from Baylor and Gonzaga?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty remarkable. I've never seen this before. I've got data going back several years, but right now in my top 10, 9 of those top 10 are all Baylor and Gonzaga players, which, again, that seems pretty extreme, but the only player in that top 10 not from those teams is Luka Garza, which makes sense. But that's extremely rare. I mean, it's rare for a team to even have 2 or 3 of their players in the top 10 by the end of the year. So it's really apparent to me that Baylor and Gonzaga are just on a separate island altogether, and I really hope we get to see those two teams play this year, because it's just going to be something else.
Yeah. What really has to happen statistically for that? I mean, like, is it just that no one scores as much as they do, really, to give you as much data?
So, yeah, I mean, each player's rating is ultimately trying to quantify the impact for their team when they're on the court. And so usually a good top 5 team will have, 1 or 2 guys to sort of separate themselves from the rest of their team, because it's obvious that based on their individual stats and also the team's performance when they're playing, that they just take their team up a notch. The thing with Baylor and Gonzaga is they're so well-rounded that you can take any one guy out of the game, and you still got 4 other guys who are just as influential. And so I think that's really what has cemented these guys all near the top of the ratings. I don't expect that necessarily to end that way in the year, especially, we might see some of these guys separate themselves more and other guys drop down, but both these teams are so well balanced. It's pretty unheard of.
Evan, have you been able to pick up on any other trends or notes of interest as far as other teams in the Big 12? I mean, Texas had the big win a few days ago. Obviously, there's a lot of contenders, but what have kind of the numbers, I guess, said to you maybe about the rest of the teams in the Big 12?
Yeah, I mean, Texas is a great one. They've definitely emerged as a big contender, and them along with Kansas will certainly be, tough tests for Baylor. Kansas is interesting because in my preseason ratings, I had them lower than most. They were, I think, outside the top 10 or 15, and their rating on my website has pretty much stayed the same. Right now, they're actually 23rd, which, again, is lower than most would have it. But, they certainly a lot of big-name guys on their team, but, they still got to put the pieces together and find some consistency, especially on the offensive end, in order to get back to their usual status of being a Final Four threat.
So Dr. Jane Harville, who has been listening to our show for a long, long time, she teaches statistics at Baylor, PhD, doctor, professor, grants, all that stuff that you get for Baylor. You know her pretty well. She also mentioned that Jason Maddox, is he already right now kind of even a part of Coach Drew's staff in a way at Baylor?
Oh yeah, Jason's a good friend of mine. He's a key component. I mean, he's been an analytics guy for their team for I think over 4 or 5 years. So he's been around there for a long time. I talked to him quite a bit to kind of get the inside scoop on what Baylor's doing, especially from an analytics point of view. So it's fun to have conversations with him. But yeah, Dr. Harville as well. She's amazing, and so yeah, it's been really fun to have her as one of my professors and advisors during my time at Baylor.
Evan Miyakawa is with us, a PhD, working on his PhD at Baylor. It's, again, analytics, stats, data, and much more when it comes to college basketball. Not just the teams, but also the players. On with us on SicEm365 Radio.
So is this just a way for you to figure out how to make your PhD more fun by just going sports all in?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. This work is not actually related at all to my PhD work. It's purely a just for fun thing. So, it certainly could turn into something, but this is purely just a fun hobby for me, if you will.
Evan, what were maybe some of the names of the players on Baylor's roster where when the numbers spit out or you crunched the numbers that were a little bit surprising? Like, what did the numbers tell you about, and I asked you about Jared Butler specifically, but other players on that roster?
So Mark Vital is one of my favorite examples of why I love my system because, from a box score point of view, his stats don't jump out at you ever. But when you watch the games, you can, he's the epitome of a glue guy, if you will, a guy who's when they're on the court, the team's just different. And the reason why he stands out in my ratings, he's sixth in the nation right now and has the second highest defensive rating, is because when he's on the floor, Baylor's performance on defense is at a whole nother level. That was the case last year. That's the case again this year. You don't even have to accrue lots of stats like steals and blocks to see that effect. So he's a great example of a guy who may not stick out when you're looking at a box score, but his impact is really obvious, and my system's able to really show that. So
it's evanmiya.com. EVANMIYA.com on online, and also that's your Twitter handle as well, Evan Miya, MIYA. Man, this is analytics, Paul. I mean,
this is well above my head.
Is this what started when they had the chart of when you should go for 2 in football? Isn't that kind of the same thing? Isn't that what started this? When did all this? What's the evolution of this when it comes to athletics and sports, Evan?
Oh, I mean, this is going back probably 10, 15 years. Obviously, a lot of people quote Moneyball as being a start of that, especially in baseball. And obviously, baseball relies so much on analytics these days. And basketball is definitely getting there, and it's a little bit more sparse at the college landscape. But obviously, guys like Ken Pomeroy are leading that charge for sure. But I mean, it's more and more coaches are trying to make decisions based off the analytics, and so. I've been getting interest from different, D1 head coaches after seeing my stuff who want to know more how to utilize it. So it's really fun to see that development.
How many programs now believe in this? There's still some that have dug their heels in the dirt and say, no, we're not going down that path?
I mean, I think at this point, there can't be a program that's completely blind to this because it's just so prevalent. And any coach who's completely ignoring the numbers at this point because they're so well accepted is going to have a pretty hard time, keeping their job or at least, staying in good reputation because so many people can get their hands on this nowadays and use quantifiable proof to show, back up their opinions, if you will. So I think it's, to some degree, every head coach, every department has to really at least have some semblance of an idea of how these numbers are looking for their team.
So, Evan, obviously we didn't get a chance to see Gonzaga and Baylor play, a couple weeks back or whatever. But based on the numbers, if you had to pick those two teams who would win in that matchup, who are you taking?
If my system's predicting that game right now, I think Baylor's a 1 or 2 point favorite in that game. So that's, maybe different than what a lot of people who are non-Gonzaga or Baylor fans that just have watched the games might see. But Baylor's been really impressive, and that's been the case even though they haven't played quite the level of competition Gonzaga has. I think that's going to really show itself as they get into Big 12 play.
Anything else? Evan, thank you very much. Dr. Harville was listening, gave us a couple of nuggets about you. Appreciate it. And congratulations on this. This seems like it's something that, first of all, this should count towards your PhD. I don't know what's going on.
This is 10 minutes of your dissertation.
Yeah, you should take a copy of the podcast that your good friend Armstrong Sims will put up very soon, attach you to it, and this should be something you submit to whoever it is, and we will then take care of the business if it's not if you don't get credit for it.
Yeah, maybe at my dissertation defense, I'll just play this instead of actually talking
there
myself.
You go.
I mean,
maybe that'll work.
Even though it's a different topic, which you did address earlier, they'll just be so impressed.
They'll just so impressed.
They're like, that's, you know what? Whatever you have in the thing you wrote, we'll read it later. A+, you're done.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Good luck, Evan. Thank you, man. That's awesome stuff. Love it. Sometimes that can get a little bit, I love math. I've always been, for some reason, pretty good at it.
I don't trust it.
Grammar was and all that. You don't trust math. What do you mean? Was it
what does that even mean?
Are there like mean? Or like is 8 a bad? Is 8 a mean number?
No. I know that it was my least favorite.
We know 666 is bad.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I trust math. I do. I trust math.
You don't trust it. So, Armstrong, how did you guys meet? Just on campus at a couple of your crazy parties? Where did you meet?
We met through a campus ministry called Campus Crusade.
Okay, good.
If you've heard of that.
That's good. He had told me he knew you, and look at Baylor launching people into the next part of their life, and with what you've done here and now full time with us.
Yeah. And we went on a Haiti mission trip together, and we bonded over college basketball.
How long were you there?
Bouncing around in the back of a truck, talking college basketball.
How long are those mission trips? A couple of weeks?
About a week.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's like a spring break. That's what this was.
But aren't you getting down and building homes and all that?
Yeah. We were like painting houses and all that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
It was really fun.
I think people need to go on those trips, right? To kind of realize what we have.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Is that what one of it? Yeah, exactly.
You step into that world, it's insane.
I'll never forget on the day that Art Browse was fired, Seth Russell and a bunch of football players were where were they?
They were in
Paul?
Africa.
Africa, yeah, they were. All right, hey, for coming up at 5 o'clock, Phil Bennett, 5:30, Mike Sherman on Jeff Grimes, Baylor's offensive coordinator, but we're not done. Rodney Webb, the head coach at Denton Guyer, he's won at Royce City. He's won at Mesquite Horn. He's won at Rockwall, and he's in the semifinals at Guyer, who they beat last year in that third round. I think it was Cedar Hill. Beat them twice last year. Rodney Webb was at Rockwall at that time. Cedar Hill and Guyer coming up in the semifinals, and Rodney Webb will join us next on SicEm365 Radio.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine is a hidden gem in Waco, a Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street. And I'm not sure what their stock is of the special single barrel Balcones they had that Steve Chapman graciously gave us some bottles of. And I had some of it on New Year's Eve, and it was absolutely fantastic. A 5-year age single malt whiskey from Balcones, but they have that there. And just to let you know, that was the only place you could get it there. And it's about quality. It's about selection. It's about what you need, what you're looking for. They can find it for you, and they get lots of different stuff. So if you've had something from a different part of the country, they can point you in the right direction there. Or if you're trying to figure out, I had this, I can't remember what it was. Believe me, they know. Whether it's spirits, beer, their craft beer selection is out of this world. Wines, they've got it all at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street here in Waco. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor alumni program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
If you or a loved one or friend has been arrested and you can't afford bail, trust Terry and Chase Chapman at Chapman's Bail Bonds, covering Waco and McLennan County for over 25 years. Chapman's can bail you out anywhere with experienced, knowledgeable local agents who are committed to serving you professionally, respectfully, and with the highest integrity. Chapman's understands your privacy is important. Your freedom can be secured fast when you use Chapman's Bail Bonds. Open 24 hours a day. Payment arrangements available. Call Chapman's Bail Bonds. When you need help, 254-754-1603. When you ring, we'll spring.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Car has the trucks, man, they have the one for you. Crew cab, short or long bed, silver, black or blue. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, he has the truck for you. Carr has the trucks, man, he has the truck you need. If you want the best truck, you want a GMC. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physician of Baylor Athletics. Our doctors specialize in the diagnosis and treatment of any and all sports-related injuries. Celebrating over a decade of service in Central Texas, our doctors are equipped to handle a wide range of issues, whether it's your foot or ankle, orthopedic spine care, your hand or wrist, knee and shoulder pain, or if you're in need of our arthritis or total joint clinic. Come see us at the new Baylor Scott and White Ted and Sue Getterman Sports and Orthopedic Center. Trusted doctors at Baylor Trust, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. Our goal is to get you back in the game.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is SicEm365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The SicEm365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
All right, wrapping up this 4 o'clock hour, the 5A and 6A programs have met, started a little bit later than everybody else in September, but they are into the semifinal round. Denton, Geyer, and Cedar Hill, they've gotten to know each other quite a bit. When you're elite, like those programs are, you do play quite a bit. I mentioned that Geyer beat Cedar Hill in the non-district and then also in the third-round playoff game a year ago. They meet again this weekend. Rodney Webb, who's been a part of the show, he came on with us to discuss Matt Rule and his impact at Baylor, and he joins us now, the head coach at Geyer High School on SicEm365 Radio. You know, all you've done is go places and win. Now, Geyer had a great history, and they've been doing well, but you kind of have a way with that, don't you, Rodney?
Well, I don't know if it's anything that I've done or if I've just been in the right place at the right time. But I'll say this, I'm getting on the back end of my career, and I felt like it would be really cool to be able to take a program over
that was already at the top, like the Geyer program. The previous places I've gone were reclamation projects. And so it's been a lot of fun getting to go to a place that has been there and done it already.
What's it like playing football in January?
Well, I've used the word unprecedented so many times, I feel like I'm kind of wearing it out. But, you know, it has been a lot of fun. Obviously, when you have a great team like this, you get to make a deep playoff run. It's always a lot of fun, but I'll also say that it's been a grind. I mean, we've blown right through the Thanksgiving break, right through the Christmas break, where we're working every day. I mean, even Christmas Day, we're not practicing, but I've got my laptop open all day watching video. And so these high-stakes games that are being played over the Christmas break offer not much time at all to really sit down and catch your breath. So we actually resumed classes today. And here we are still playing football in the spring semester. So it is bizarre, but at the same time, you know, it's just we gotta grind our way through it because we're so close to the finish line.
Coach, you have a number of players who are going to be playing at the Division I level. I mean, your quarterback's headed to A&M. You've got your receiver in Sanders headed to Texas. You've got a corner headed to A&M, but you've also got Cooper Lands going to Baylor. What can you tell us about Cooper and the addition that he brings to the Bears?
Well, Cooper is spectacular, and here's the thing about Cooper and I love to brag on kids in this regard. He's a great football player, but you're going to love him as a person even more. He's a high character kid. He is a Baylor type kid, and you're going to want to root for the kid. He plays hard. He plays with extreme physicality and a really, really high motor. He just got named the Dallas News Player of the Week this past week for his game against Prosper. He absolutely dominated that game throughout, but especially late. Blocked a field goal in overtime. That was kind of the icing on the cake for him in that game. But huge upside for him. Everything that you look for in a Division I defensive lineman.
Yeah, and when you say he's a Baylor-type kid, we had a couple of people who have now joined us to discuss Jeff Grimes, who's the new offensive coordinator at Baylor, and everybody, whether they played alongside of him or coached alongside, or they're like R.C. Slocum, they all have said the same thing about Jeff Grimes, kind of he'll fit that Baylor, I guess you could say, standard. Did you ever run into him on the recruiting trail?
Oh, you know what? I didn't know he got named. I've had my head in the sand. No, Jeff and I are friends. He's awesome. I love the guy.
Wow.
And again, a top notch guy. We're both Garland guys.
Yep.
He's a Lakeview kid, and I'm a North Garland kid. So yeah, I know. I've known Jeff for a long time, just as a hometown guy, but also as a recruiter. Wow, that is a great hire.
Yeah, you know, it came down earlier today. We've had R.C. Slocum. We've had Bob Stoll, who he played for at UTEP. Also, we had Jesse Burleson, the head coach at Hardin-Simmons. We coached him at Hardin-Simmons, and that's where you are. You're focused on Cedar Hill, which I can understand why, but I'm sure when you get off with us, you can send him a text and congratulate him because everyone seems to be pretty pumped up with this hire.
Yeah, I'll absolutely congratulate him. You know, and what a job he did at BYU is running the offense up there. You know, I mean, he's been an O-line guy a good part of his career, but clearly ready to take the next step and has shown it. And again, just what an A+ human being he is as well.
So you haven't played anybody, Ryan, Allen. I mean, you guys are rolling along, scoring a lot of points. And this has been a little mini-series between Cedar Hill and Geyer. Now, I know a part of it this year for you, but this has turned into quite the rivalry between the two.
Yeah, it has. You know, I'm just getting indoctrinated into that right now. I haven't been around here to be a part of it. You know, they played twice last year, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's certainly a budding rivalry. And, you know, two programs that have a rich tradition and that are used to making deep playoff runs. And just what an awesome opportunity to play these guys in the state semifinals.
So you've been able to get yourself in this position. You mentioned practicing or doing what you do or meeting, whatever, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, all the stuff that's going with it and playing in January, as Paul asked you about. That area, the part of Dallas, when you go from Waco into Dallas, and I know that's Denton and it's north of Dallas, but the amount of schools now in the Dallas and Fort Worth area that are playing at an extremely high level seems to be, I think, at an all-time high.
I would agree. And the thing about it, David, is that everybody's good. There may be a few pockets here or there that football is not maybe emphasized quite as much. But in it, like we play in 5-6A, and I can tell you, you better bring it every single week in 5-6A. And that's true in most of the districts around here. There's so much parity these days that you just can't ever catch your breath. And we'll go in research and development mode as soon as our season is over. Having the late finish to our season, we're immediately going to have to go into preparing for 2021 just to try to get a leg up. It's almost like an arms race around here where you've got to have the latest, the latest, greatest stuff to be able to have an edge on the people that you play. And if you're not constantly evolving as a coach, then you're falling behind.
Mm-hmm. Anything else, guys? Nope. Greg, anything else? Rodney, we appreciate you. I always appreciated you when you started. And you're right. You either rebuilt or built Royce City, Mesquite Horn, and then Rockwall. And obviously you were on the edge at Rockwall many times of greatness as well, and now the opportunity at Geyer. Love what you've done, appreciate what you do, and also appreciate your friendship as well. Have a great day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good to talk to you guys.
Rodney Webb.
Happy New Year.
You too. Rodney Webb, head coach at Geyer. They lost earlier this year by 3 to Denton Ryan. They're still playing. Then lost in a shootout with Allen, who's in the same district with them. And Allen was knocked out. So Trinity in that crazy game. Trinity was just beaten by South Lake Carroll.
There's another coach that's from Garland, Terry Gamble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly
a
right.
hotbed.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there was also a coach from Garland that we had on. I can't remember. Well, we had him on because Seth Russell was from in there. Yeah, Seth was from there. His former head coach. I just went blank on his name. All right, coming up next, Phil Bennett. He knows Jeff Grimes. How about Rodney Webb? Just out of nowhere. Everyone knows him.
Jeff Grimes. Yeah. The three of us are the only people who don't know him.
Yeah, basically. And, obviously there's other moves that have been made. I mean, we haven't really hit on since the start of the show that Joe Wickline's out.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned that in like 2 hours. And Sean Bell's now the quarterback's coach. So, yeah, there's a new OC, and that's all very exciting. But there's been a couple of other moves made as well. And, the staff is starting to come together and fill the slots they had opened, and be exciting to see how the changes, change things potentially and hopefully coming up over the next few months.
And you know that after they get the staff completed, they'll probably then be able to introduce everybody, and possibly even we'll hear from Dave Aranda or some of the new hires. Sean Bell, that's a great landing spot for him. He's been able to survive too, coaching. He was able to go from Matt Rule to Dave Aranda, and now even with the offensive coordinator change, he now gets to. So he
gets to coach a position that he played.
Yes, and he's been the offensive line coach. Tutelage under George DeLeon, was promoted up into that. When DeLeon couldn't coach anymore, could sustain the recruiting because of the hip injury, and then also last year the tight ends coach, and now the quarterbacks coach. David Wetzel, of course, still on staff as well. What he does, an incredible job. And he's known Jeff Grimes for a long, long time, bumped into on the recruiting trails. Joey McGuire, when he was at Cedar Hill, one of the guys that came to Cedar Hill. Because if you're a coach and you recruit and you don't go into Cedar Hill and DeSoto and Duncanville, you're an idiot. They bumped into each other quite a bit.
It's the first place you got to go.
Guys with Cedar Hill. Coming up next, Phil Bennett knew Jeff Grimes when he was a GA at A&M. And this is SicEm365 Radio.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. I told you for the last few weeks about all the great holiday sales they've got going on. Well, the holiday sales event continues on now. The Buicks, for example, on most 2020 and 2021 Buick models, employee pricing for everybody. That means you pay what the employees pay, and that means you get at least a nice little chunk of change off your immediate price tag. They also got the 2021s. The new models are in. The 2021 GMC Terrain SLT, $6,000 off during the holiday sales event. The 2021 GMC Sierra SLT Crew Cab trucks, they're $11,000 off. That's a 2021, already $11,000 off. The GMC Sierra SLT Crew Cab at Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. They've also got the tire match guarantee, employee pricing for everyone, as I mentioned at the start, on most 2020 and 2021 GMC trucks and SUV models. So take advantage of the great deals going on right now at Richard Carr. And at Richard Carr, of course, a big part of what they do is the customer service aspect. For the last several months while this stupid pandemic has been going on, they've still been up and running. They've still been welcoming folks into the dealership and doing so with your safety in mind. All employees wash their hands vigorously and regularly. They also will bring the test drive to you just in case you still don't feel comfortable enough going around and being around people. You can still buy a new car because they will bring that test drive to you, let you check it out, and help you get a deal done. So thousands off right now. Great customer service. Check them out online at richardcar.com. And, of course, you can stop by the dealership as well at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
MP Electric has developed a quality-oriented electrical contracting service in more than 20 years in the industry. Led by President Mark Perry, our electricians go through a 5-year apprenticeship program, are licensed by the state of Texas, and getting continuous education annually upon renewal. In great part, the success of MP Electric lies with its management and professional expertise of its employees. All of our employees share a dedication to quality and commitment to serving the needs of our customers. For new construction and remodels, parking lot, lighting and surge protection, landscape lights, security lights, troubleshooting and repairs. For industrial manufacturing, food and beverage, paper and publishing, heavy industry, cement and rock crushing plants, water distribution plants, and utilities. For 20 years, MP Electric has serviced industrial, commercial, and residential products. We do service right. MP Electric Inc. at 1890 Galaxy Road, Waco. MPElectricUSA.com.
It's a new year. Time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Hi, this is David Smoak, including what you'll need to watch the NFL playoffs and Super Bowl. Ribs, sausage, links, brisket, chicken wings, bags of various snacks, and customized appetizer trays. Don't forget to order something now for the perfect home-cooked Valentine's Day dinner, which is closer than you think, including combo packs with ribeyes, fillets, and lobster tails. Live crawfish season is just around the corner. Absolutely the right time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Waco Custom Marketplace, your family meat market, butcher shop and bakery with everything baked fresh with old-fashioned farmers market atmosphere. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Learning to navigate life in the COVID-19 world has been a struggle, and where and how to get tested has been one of the biggest challenges. Impact Health Labs has your answer. If you need mass testing for your office, church, dormitory, or school, Impact Health Labs is who to call. They will come to you, conduct the testing at your location, and have the test back within 24 hours. Most major insurance accepted, meaning your out-of-pocket cost is low. So no more waiting by the phone for days to find out the results. Impact Health Labs was founded by 3 Army licensed and credentialed medical professionals. They believe in accuracy, efficiency, and doing the job right. Call 254-744-6233 to set up your group screening today. Impact Health Labs, on-site, prompt, and accurate, taking COVID-19 head-on. Again, that number is 254-744-6233 or online at impacthealthlabs.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Tom Albers, staying in touch with you and your money through these difficult and changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
That one picked off, and it's a pick six by Jalen Petrie.
This segment with former Baylor defensive coordinator Phil Bennett is sponsored by the Nitchie Group Insurance Company, where clients are more than just a policy number. See why thousands of Texans trust the Nitchie Group with their home, auto, benefits, and commercial insurance coverage. Call their Waco office to speak with an expert at 254-420-3900 or visit them online at tngins.com. Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, we keep extending Phil Bennett's segment, which he has signed a 4-year deal. He doesn't know it yet. We've spoken
well, he's
with
the
his
coach.
agent.
That means there's a buyout.
Yeah.
So
$20 million buyout.
It works out well for him.
Yeah. we were thinking about maybe talking about Ohio State's destruction of Clemson or Alabama hammering Notre Dame, but my God, it seems like everybody we've spoken to on earth knows Jeff Grimes, and you did when he was a young whippersnapper, and that news came down today, and you and I spoke a little bit earlier. So your thoughts, Phil, about Jeff Grimes to Baylor?
Well, first of all, he's a class individual, and they got a great man. He was a young coach when I was with him, and you could tell he had it. I followed his career intently because he sort of climbed the ladder, and you knew that it was going to happen. And one of the things when he went to BYU, he got his chance to be the play caller, and run the offense, and really did a good job. And the first, I think in 18 they were okay. 19 they got a little bit better, could really score. They lost their last game in the bowl game to Hawaii, but I think they scored 45 points. And then this year, it sort of all, it hit on all cylinders, and BYU had one of the better offenses in the country. And you and I talked. One of the things I'm gonna ask start now is he had a guy named Aaron Roderick that was a longtime University of Utah offensive coordinator there with him that coached the quarterback. That sort of did you tell me that they have already made a quarterback hire?
Well, it appears as if Sean Bell, and that's what Sean Bell will be the quarterback's coach, who's been offensive line coach under George DeLeon and then the tight ends coach. So he's now the quarterback's coach, the young man from China Spring.
Now, I love him. I love Sean. I've known him forever. But that's been done,
yes,
right?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And, it will be interesting because Aaron Rodgers, I guess he was very involved in the passing game. And that's the thing with Jeff. He's got an unbelievable background, but he's got to have someone that can incorporate what they were doing, with the quarterback, the reads, and the passing game. He'll do an unbelievable job with the run game, but he's got to have that confidant. We talked about it. Paul and I talked about it just a minute ago. Just like a linebacker coach has to be really confident in his secondary coach, and that's something now with Jeff being the offensive coordinator and probably more details on the O-line. That will be a big position.
Actually, Aaron Roderick, we had a guy on from the Deseret News, and he mentioned him as Jeff's replacement at BYU.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. I had known him when Utah, back when they used to have some great games with TCU in the old Mountain West. He really did a good job for him.
Phil, when you got into a new position, what were kind of like the first couple of days like? What was the beginning process of joining a new team and getting to know the roster? What are kind of the things that you think Grimes will be doing as he gets acclimated in Waco?
Well, he'll be getting the lay of the land. The first thing he's got to do is get his staff the way he wants it. I'd be shocked if there's not other changes. There's got to be some other guys that he's got to bring some Jeff Grimes people with him. And that's not a knock to anybody that's there. It's just I can remember the day I came in, replacing those guys, and I told Art I'm picking the coaches, and I had no intention of cleaning everybody out, but I did have an idea of the fit that I wanted, and I'm sure that's going to be number one. He's got to be comfortable with the people that he's going to be working with, and then after that, then you go to the players. And then, basically, too, what are our needs? I mean, I've said this, and I told it Smokey today. I mean, they've got to get better. They've got to get more explosive players there. They've got to find out their quarterback. They got to find out, guys that they can get the ball to that are exciting and electric. So he's got his work cut out.
By the way, right before we went on the air, I was able to confirm that Joe Wickline will not be back as the offensive line coach. I know there was speculation, there was discussion about that, but that's not a surprise. Jeff Grimes is an offensive line guy, and that might be one of those roles then that he can fill with one of his people, and the wide receivers coach as well.
Well, I would think so. He had a young guy, I think his name was Eric Matias, that was quote unquote the line coach at BYU, and I think Jeff might have been like the tight end coach / coordinator and sort of oversee the line. And that's sort of, if you remember, when Andy Reid was with the Green Bay Packers, Andy was the tight end coach.
Yep.
He took over either before or after Andy Morningwig, and so that's not uncommon.
Phil Bennett, former Baylor defensive coordinator, with us Mondays on SicEm365 Radio. Paul?
As far as stylistically goes with Jeff Grimes, you mentioned his strength in the running game. Is that something maybe Dave Aranda had to look for? And whoever wound up getting this job was someone who was really going to be grounded in making the offensive line and the running game better, because it has not been good for quite some time here at Baylor.
It's funny. Talking to some people that I worked with at Baylor, and we were talking about a pro scout called me about a former Baylor kid. We were talking. He said, Phil, it used to amaze me. Y'all would have not just one 1,000-yard rusher, you'd have two. And you think of the backs that we had there, and how it evolved, and that's the thing I think that will balance that offense out. I think Jeff knows that. I watched them play this year probably 3 or 4 times, and then you throw in the play action and a good drop back game, and that really gives offset some of the issues that you have. We talked about this year, and like I said, I'm not trying to point fingers, but we were almost non-existent, in running the football, and that's a lot of different reasons why. But it definitely, puts a target on your back.
Coach, from a defensive standpoint, they've got a lot of guys coming back. They were very solid on that side of the ball. What do you think Ron Roberts is working on along with Dave Aranda right now? Typically, when you get done with the year, what's kind of like the game plan now heading into the offseason?
Well, you want to look at the thing. You're going to balance. See, what did we do good? What did we do bad? What are the things that we were really good at? And then you're going to say, all right, we like this, and we're we're going to keep doing this. And then like in the back end, just look at the last game. You got to get better protecting the vertical. The vertical passing game, when we didn't play well, was an issue. And I thought of course, you're going to get Bernard back. The other, I think most of the linebackers. And I'm glad Riley's coming back. After that last game, I didn't want to see him end his career like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll look at those things and say, all right, we can do this, we can't do that, and they really, for the first time, will be able to take a breath and say, all right, this is where we're at, and they haven't had a chance to do that, and I'm sure Dave will be in the middle of that.
Do you think that this offseason is almost more important than what it would have been if they would have had one last year, or not?
Well, very similar. It's a duo. Let me say this, and I know everybody loves to beat up on coaches, but Larry, Fedora, and George, listen, they were behind the 8 ball. Like even offensively, it's more important with timing. And not knowing what you have, and the situation, those guys are good coaches. Regardless, I'm going to tell anybody that. It just didn't happen this year for them, and they will be back. And yes, in answer to your question, I think that without a doubt, that Jeff will be able to come in, see some things. He'll have a better feel of most of the guys coming back. Now, one thing he's going to have to do, this will be Sean's first time ever coaching a quarterback at this level. And I know he's coached some great coaches. I know he's up for it. But there's also an experience factor. And Jeff is more of an O-line guy. So one of the things that's going to happen for the success to be quick is they're going to have to mesh very fast.
Do you think you think maybe that then the wide receivers hire will have some of that in his background as well?
I say this again. I don't know what Dave and Jeff have discussed, but I just can't see Jeff taking this job without saying, "Hey, I need at least two guys. You know, my O-line guy and my receiver guy." And I don't think Dave would do that anywhere. You know, and it's not that you're not still loyal to the head coach, but it's just the situation. You want to bring guys in that know you, what to expect, and those things. So I would think in the next week or two, there'll be some other things going on around there.
What do you think about Steve Sarkisian at Texas?
I think it's a good move. I think that for whatever reason, I think Tom lost all credibility at Texas. And I think that I can go back to the time he shot the finger on the Longhorn Network. I never got over that. All I could think of, knowing Darryl Rule, knowing the people that have been there, it made me ill that they would have hired a guy that immature and irresponsible to do that. And I knew right then he wasn't going to make it. I like Steve Sarkisian for two reasons. Number one, he's a beautiful, intelligent ball coach, and he's a true ball coach. And he has fought issues, and he's won. And he's been down, and he has worked himself back up, and he is not going into Austin, Texas with anything other than say, "Hey, we've got to recruit." And I'm going to tell you what, you better get ready. He will hire a group of guys. I told one of my A&M friends, they better get ready. That quarterback from South Lake will be back in Austin. You can bet your bottom dollar. I bet you that happens. And I think he will hire staff that gets after it and will become a really, really somebody that they've got to deal with in the Big 12.
Coach, what'd you think of a 3-touchdown win for Ohio State over Clemson?
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to quote Art Browse. Art Browse used to tell me, he said, as much as I like, what Clemson does, he said, I still think they struggle with tempo. And it was almost like he was in their game plan. If you notice the tempo, they couldn't get lined up. Mm-hmm. And you go back to 2011, 2012 with us, with Brent there, and Brent does an unbelievable job. But this tempo offense is still a nemesis for him, and they were able to throw the deep ball just like we did. You guys both remember how we won the game in 11, with Terrence Williams. The whole game, we started the game. When you can't defend the vertical pass, your chances for winning are almost nil.
I want to bring up something that's about the vertical pass. I've noticed this, and I think if you have tall, lanky, athletic receivers that always help, do you think as a defensive coordinator that sometimes the most effective play for an offense that struggles is a deep sideline fade and hope for a pass interference call?
Well, it's a great call. I don't know if you guys watched the A&M North Carolina game.
Yep.
North Carolina had 4,000 yards of offense that did not play. All right. And they came out, and A&M has struggled all year with the deep ball. They've got a freshman corner. Miles Jones was hurt. They had and this other kid, I think his name is George. They struggled, and North Carolina lit it up. And A&M cannot really throw the vertical. And I had a guy tell me today. He said the reason I wouldn't. And this guy is a national news guy, former NFL head coach. He said, I could never see A&M being a top 4 challenge, because they don't defend the vertical and they can't throw vertical. Well, you look at the teams that are in the Final Four, even Notre Dame, that could throw the vertical. Ohio State could, Clemson could, and obviously Alabama could. So, I think if you can throw the vertical passing game, you become very dangerous. And let's don't kid ourselves. The more vertical it is, and I go back to us. If you remember, I look at 14. Somebody sent me a video, and we had Antoine Goodley. We had of course, Corey. We had what's our big kid from Allen?
Jay Lee. Yeah.
And then we had Levi, and then we had one other number 5. What was his Goodley?
Yeah.
I mean, we had 5 receivers that could, at any time, could beat you vertical. And go back to the TCU game. Do you remember the second half with those 24 points? Every one of those throws were verticals. And we did. If you remember, one of the biggest plays of the game, Smokey, was the interference on that last drive before we kicked the field goal.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, there weren't many receivers. You had no receivers back then. None. None.
Well, that's what I'm saying right now. People say, well, Baylor's got Baylor, and I say this again, it's not a slap, it's the truth. Matt Rule knew what he was doing. He had to get out of there because the players the Mims and those, they were gone. And you saw what it did to Charlie. Yeah. Charlie became a mediocre quarterback with no running game and no vertical threat.
Corey Coleman, Jay Lee, Antoine Goodley, Lynx Hawthorne was a sophomore, Ishmael Zamora, who never was able to materialize, and K.D. Cannon was a freshman.
And
Chris Platt was a freshman. You had there's one Levi Norwood. You mentioned him.
Yeah.
Golly, and then just crazy.
Is that unbelievable?
Yeah.
And wait a minute, let me go to the running back. Shock Linwood, our kid from Wichita Falls. I mean, we were, and of course Bryce. Bryce was so smart and so. Just one of those guys. And this guy sent me a 5-minute clip. I wish I could send it to you. It was the damnedest thing you've ever seen. It showed them throwing verticals, and we stopped them. And we were throwing verticals, and we were scoring.
Shock Linwood, you had a kid named Johnny Jefferson who turned out to have a great year. And then, of course, that ended for him because of some things he was dealing with. Wow. Yeah.
That's right.
Wow. Okay. Anything else, guys?
No, I don't think so.
So when you heard the name Jeff Grimes, we're about to have Mike Sherman. You don't know him. We had R.C. Slocum. Oh, my God, we could have just replayed his segment for you. That was great because he started talking. He said that you guys just started talking about an old Brigham Young game. You just started.
I don't want to. Hey, it was a humbling game.
That's what he said. That's what he said. He goes, don't bring all those up. Those are scars. Don't bring those up. Yeah. Hey, Phil.
He said he went in a bathroom one time 15 years later, and it was on some bathroom in Southern California. The score, Sarkisian was from, it was Sarkisian that was the quarterback.
Yep. That's what he was saying. Hey, can we keep going with you? Is it okay?
Yeah.
You got a championship game next week? I can't wait, man. Thank you very much, Phil. Appreciate it, Coach.
All right, guys. Good luck. Bye-bye.
God, the stories, they never end.
Yeah, I knew this about basketball because you talk to Scott Drew and then he's like, oh yeah, well I know Dickie V from this and this and this, and it's Phil Bennett's got the same kind of thing with football where they're just one call away from look Jeff Grimes now you look at that thing. Jeff Grimes is a call away from Andy Reid.
Yes, exactly, and the fact that he brought up the quarterback's coach at Brigham Young and that guy might be the new offensive coordinator and some of the names that they might be looking at. Hey, before we take the break, I want to make sure, I mentioned this earlier, Umoja Gibson from University High was the Big 12 player and newcomer of the week. He destroyed West Virginia, and that's who Baylor plays on Wednesday. 29 points, 8 of 11 shooting threes. So he was honored this week. The NCAA, Anthony Calhoun had this story, has reached an agreement to host the entire NCAA men's basketball tournament in Indianapolis.
Indiana. In the state, because there's going to be
the state of Indiana.
There's going to be some in Bloomington, and there's going to be some in other places. Most of it will be in Indianapolis, and it'll be at hotels attached to the convention center.
Sure. That way everyone's kind of contained. Baylor women moved up to 6 in the national poll. They have UConn coming up on Thursday. At home, UConn number 3 in the country. Stanford, Louisville, NC State, UConn, and South Carolina 1 through 5. A&M is 8, Arkansas 13th, UT is 17th. They just beat Iowa State. And the Cowboys are not in the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after Mike Sherman.
That was a great game between the Washington football team and the Eagles, though. Just fantastic football.
I watched 2 of the worst football games
I have never been more frustrated in the history of watching football. And that says a lot the last 10 years watching that franchise.
You know what happened to me last night? I got mad on behalf of the Giants. That's never happened to me before.
I've seen a lot of whining from the Giants, and I get why.
But I'm just like,
go win another game.
Yeah.
Don't be 6-10. Don't be 6-10 waiting for a bad team to beat another bad team and then get mad about it because a bad team is worse.
And then a bad team plays the worst player on their team.
How can a bad team tank anyway? You're already bad. Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, Nate Sudfeld, you poor guy.
When we come back, Mike Sherman knows Jeff Grimes from back when he was hired at A&M as an offensive line. He was the offensive line coach. Mike Sherman next on SicEm365 Radio's tour of Remember in the Life and Times of Jeff Grimes.
The First National Bank of Central Texas, 5 locations right here at home. Waco, Woodway, Hewitt, China Spring, Martin, Hillsboro. Familiar faces making local decisions. Here to help you, your family, and your business, whether it's great times or tough times. All of us need a bank we can count on. Great people with great technology dedicated to their customers and helping our area grow. Safe banking in person or use their online and mobile apps. Convenient drive-through and ATMs available at all locations. And speaking of those apps, they've got Secure Lock Equip. It was a legitimate charge, but I got a weird text this weekend from something I didn't recognize that I'd spent $9. And it was a new thing that I had ordered, but it came from a weird website, so I had to check it out. But I wouldn't have known that had I not gotten the text. And you can get texts all the time, and it'll let you know what's going on your debit card. Plus, they've got instant issue debit cards. So in case that text had been something bad, I'd have to cancel my debit card. I would just gone to the bank this morning, driven up to the drive-thru window and said, hey, I need a new debit card. Boom, done. You don't have to wait for it in the mail if you have a big national chain. The First National Bank of Central Texas, 5 locations right here at home.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Bird Culchin Ford has been in Waco since 1936. Ford, the #1 selling truck in Texas, 43 years running. And Bird Culchin Ford proudly supports high school football in Central Texas. And no better way to tailgate with a Ford than from Bird Culchin Ford. And are there better vehicles to tailgate with than the Ford F-150 or the Ford Expedition? And of course, you can get them new, pre-owned Bird Culchin Ford. Our sponsor of the Ford Tough Player of the Week, locally owned dealership. Online at bkford.com at 1701 West Loop 340 in Waco. Bird Culchin Ford.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma. And they have to come here. They're used to lights. They're used to water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel & Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel & Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel & Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. Are you a SicEm365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at SicEm365.com.
5:34 is the time. There's that show that used to be called This Is Your Life when it comes to looking back at somebody's life, and we've been able to try to do that a little bit today with new offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes at Baylor, R.C. Slocum, Phil Bennett, Bob Stoll. Paul, help me out. I've gone blank on a couple of the others. Tomorrow, Ken Hatfield will join us. He was the first one to hire him as a GA back in '95 at Rice University. Now, Mike Sherman, former Texas A&M, and also Packers head coach, joins us on SicEm365 Radio and his thoughts about Jeff Grimes back in the day. Coach, thank you very much. Always great to have you on the show. What do you remember most about the young Jeff Grimes when he was a GA at A&M?
Well, Jeff, number one, he's a quality person. There's no question about that. He comes from the mold of coaches, I think, that you'd want to have, particularly at a place like Baylor. And so I think he fits that quite well. But he was an attention to detail coach, and he was just a young coach with me. I think he was with Coach Hatfield, and then he came over with me, and obviously I was working with R.C. Slocum at the time, but he worked with me with the offensive line, and a young guy, energetic, great communication skills. Players absolutely loved him at the time, and so of course I was a bad guy being the line coach. He was my assistant, so he had to be the good guy, bad cop, good cop type of thing. So, but just a very much willing and wanting to learn and be the best he could be. So that's kind of what I remember about him. That was I think that was back in 1996 and 97 that we were together. So that's really challenging my memory right now, but I think I get it right.
Coach, you had a great knack, and probably still do, of evaluating offensive line talent, and it seems like Coach Grimes has that as well. Did you see that in him of knowing the guys that were good and the guys that could play and identifying talent?
Well, yeah, it was easy because I coached the good guys. He coached the bad guys. So that was an easy one to realize. But, yeah, I mean, we used to do the recruiting together, and as far as evaluating the talent that we were going to go out after. And you know, he was definitely someone that had a knack for that. And in order to be good at something like that, like some guys like to coach and some guys like to evaluate, and some guys like to do both. And Jeff is one of those guys like myself that enjoy the game of football, but also finding the chess pieces to put in place, particularly with the foundation of the offense, and that's the offensive line. So I would say he definitely had talent. And if you look at his record, where he's been, what he's done over at LSU and wherever else, he's had great success.
Coach, you know O-line as well as anybody. Grimes does as well, but Baylor has had major issues with their O-line, and he's got to hire an O-line coach. But where do you begin when you're rebuilding, so to speak, an offensive line? Where do you start?
As far as what position, or
the offensive line? The offensive line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to be able to protect the quarterback in this day and age, particularly in the Big 12, as much as they throw the football there. And so those tackle positions are certainly critical. And to be able to get a good left tackle on the backside of the quarterback is something that you always hope you can solve that question mark. And when we were at A&M, we were able to find a couple of pretty good ones and ended up doing quite well for themselves. But I would say that would be the starting point, and then you work from there. But you want guys who are – I always wanted athletic guys. I didn't want just the big guys because they may have a tendency not to give the effort or have the mental toughness to be able to last the entire game. So I wanted athletic guys that could play physical and be at the same level the entire game.
You know, as an offensive line guy, and then you became a head coach, play caller, your own basically offensive coordinator, how difficult is that, or is that easier being a former offensive line coach to become an offensive coordinator?
Well, I do think there's a lot of coordinators out there that offensive coordinators that they know the passing game, and they may know something about the run game, but offensive line play may be a little bit lacking. I would think that if you want a quality offensive line coach, a quality offensive coordinator, someone who coaches the line really has a good idea about protections and about blocking schemes and angles and whatnot, and then learns the passing game as he grows. And that's kind of how I did it when I first came out of coaching high school and then going into college and different places. You know, I knew the line schemes and everything else, and then taught myself the passing game. And so I think it's a lot better to have that background be the offensive line, because that's really where it all starts. Of all the teams I've ever been on, all the good teams had good offensive lines, and any team that wasn't so good didn't. So you really want to start with those guys up front.
Mike Sherman, former Texas A&M head coach. He was an offensive line coach when Jeff Grimes, now Baylor's offensive coordinator, was a graduate assistant. We've heard from R.C. Slocum. We've heard from Bob Stoll and Phil Bennett, and now Mike Sherman on the hire of Jeff Grimes at Baylor.
What was your key when you had guys that were struggling in season to get an offensive line together? And Baylor struggled with that tremendously this year. They just couldn't get any cohesiveness on the line. What was the key to helping, maybe just plug a hole in the dam for a little bit?
Well, I think this year was a tough year to evaluate that because you had COVID hanging over your head, and possibly, I don't know what Baylor's situation was, but causing some inconsistencies in that offensive line group possibly. But in order to be the best offensive line I think I ever had in the pros was up in Green Bay, and we consistently would have the same guys week in and week out. And when you can have those guys week in and week out show up and not have to make substitutions here and there across the line, you're going to be pretty good. And the communication is consistent. The attitude is consistent. They understand things to get collectively, because offensive linemen are evaluated that way. They're evaluated collectively, not individually. So you can have a superstar or left tackle, but not be a very good offensive line collectively. So you want to measure those guys as a group, not as individuals.
Coach, you were with the Packers and obviously had success there. It didn't end up that way at the end, but you saw Aaron Rodgers for the 1 year he was there after you drafted him out of California. Did you see with what he's now done? Did you see that when you drafted him?
I'd like to say that I did. Saw the success that he has now. It was part of what he did back then. But no, I didn't think he'd be at the level that he's at right now. I thought he was a very good player, but he's playing at a level that is above just about everybody else. So, no, anybody that says that they saw that was in that draft room is not telling the truth, because we thought he was a good player. We didn't know that he'd be a great player and a future Hall of Famer. So that's something I think that is a product of his work ethic and his desire to be great. I think he throws the ball harder, stronger than he throws it better now than he did back then. He's just a more complete player. And he was good back then, but he's certainly great right now. And as I said, potential, obviously a future Hall of Famer.
But during the day, until you got to him, you didn't think that you were going to get a chance at him, did you?
No, we actually did not think we were going to have a chance to get him. but I remember hearing some things a couple of days before, and heard he was dropping. So just to make sure, I went in early that morning of the draft and looked at him on tape. Had the offensive coordinator look at him as well, and thinking that maybe he will drop to us. And when the time came, Ted Thompson was our general manager, made the pick, and it's been a great pick. Obviously, Brett Favre was able to finish his career, which gave Aaron a chance to really grow watching Brett play. And I think Aaron will tell you he learned a lot from Brett during that time he sat and watched, and that helped him become the player he is today. You have been in coaching and in football basically forever, and have had all sorts of different roles, from an assistant coach to a coordinator to a GM, Canadian Football League. You taught high school football late in your career as well. What are you doing now? I remember you were doing something with Your Call Football. Then it was the CFL with Montreal. Are you out of coaching completely now as far as football? Coaches are never out of coaching. They're just out of a job, so to speak. But they're always coaching, whether it's your kids, your grandkids, your wife. I mean, once a coach, you're always looking to, how can we make this better? How can we do this a little bit different? One of my favorite sayings that I tell my kids and grandkids: go to the next play. What's the next play? Forget about what just happened. Let's just worry about the next play. They guys, don't worry about what just happened. So I think once a coach, always a coach. And, people ask you to work out to, help their son who's a quarterback at the local high school. You do that if you can, and, just stay active. Thank you very much. Craig, anything else? Mike Sherman. Coach, appreciate it. It's great having you on the show again. We appreciate you. Paul, what did you say? We had him on at the Super Bowl, right?
No, we had him. We didn't have him
Big 12 Media Days.
We did have him the Super Bowl one time, but the first time we had him on was Big 12 Media Days, I believe in the last year of the Big 12.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely.
Or at A&M in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still around, but yeah.
Mike, thank you very much. We appreciate your insight on Jeff Grimes. It's been an amazing day. Everybody to a man, from you to RC to Phil Bennett to his coach at UTEP, but also his former friend who's a coach now at Hardin Simmons and Jesse Burleson, have said he's a great human being. He's going to be perfect for the Baylor fit, and we appreciate you for your time. Yeah, let me just say, I mean, he is, and his wife and 4 kids, and this guy is a family man, which is what you want at that position, and or any position for that matter, to be able to be a great role model for your players. And I can't think of a better role model. If I had a son at that age and could be coached by a Jeff Grimes, that's where I'd want him, right with that guy, because he'll teach him more than just football. He'll teach him about life and what's important. And so you all lucked out on this one. This was you really hit a gold mine. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Mike Sherman, longtime football coach, Packers, A&M, and much more. Started out as a high school coach in Connecticut. This is from Barry Ray. He just sent me this direct message. Just the kind of people you've had on that have loved the guy, Jeff Grimes, and their character is indicative of how great of a hire this is. I bet Grant Tapp even knows him, or at least about him. Great show today, guys. That's from Barry. Barry, thank you very much for your tweet. When we come back, we'll wrap it up. Look at the NFL playoffs. Tomorrow, Babe Loffenberg will join us, and will David Hellman. And we'll have more on Jeff Grimes and the changes in the Baylor coaching staff. This is SicEm365 Radio.
At Baylor University, students find their place to shine. They're faithful friends and inspirational leaders. They're championship teammates and independent thinkers. They're on the cutting edge of high tech and in the halls of history. If you want to make the world a brighter place, you can. And if you want to shine in your own way, you can. The spark you need is already inside you. Bring it to Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
When it comes to hauling the family and hauling cargo, see Alan Samuels. Get the king of minivans, the award-winning Chrysler Pacifica, or America's lowest price third-row crossover, Dodge Journey. During the Big Finish event, get 0%, no payments for 90 days, and employee pricing for all on Pacifica. It's minivan first class. And get employee pricing for all on new 2020 Dodge Journeys. Happy holidays from your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Engel at the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine has their easy-to-access drive-thru open and convenient and clean in-store location on the corner of Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. Riverbend Liquor has the best and most extensive variety of craft beer selections in Waco, and Balcones whiskey, including single malt, pot still, baby blue, rye, brimstone, and the all-new lineage in stock. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, family-owned and operated, and a hidden gem in Waco on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street. And find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio.
The SicEm365 Radio Live Guest VIP Hotline is sponsored by Stonewood Dental. We are all in this together.
Hope you had a chance to enjoy a little bit of who is Jeff Grimes, and eventually we'll have Jeff Grimes, and of course Dave Aranda on Jeff Grimes. So Babe Laufenberg, Ken Hatfield tomorrow, Mac Rhodes tomorrow, and much more, including the new changes in the staff at Baylor. So Washington won the NFC East with a 7-9 record. It was painstaking to watch that game. Last team to do it, Carolina, was in 2014. They were 7-8-1. Ron Rivera was the head coach. 2010, Seattle was 7-9. They won a playoff game with Marshawn Lynch.
That was the
beast mode, right? Yeah. The first team ever from the NHL, WHA, World Hockey Association, NBA, or NFL to win a conference or a division championship with an under 500 record was the 1967-68 Philadelphia Flyers. It hadn't happened a lot. In all these sports over all these years, it has happened very few times. And nobody's ever gone on to do anything as far as win it all, although some of them went on a round or two in the playoffs. All right. The Cowboys. Waco High and University High. Waco ISD will start interviewing sometime next week for the new head football coaches at those two schools. Did you see some of the feedback from the Giants and media as Philadelphia pulled the trigger on Sudfeld?
Yeah, it was, look, you knew what Doug Peterson was doing. I mean, and, you know, he had told, I mean, he's very clever about it in that he told the Sunday Night Football crew, like, I'd like to get a look at Nate Sudfeld. I very rarely agree with things that Chris Collinsworth says, but one of the things he said was, if you want to get a look at Nate Sudfeld, then start Nate Sudfeld. But you've now, like, entered into this game with these guys and told them to go out and win, and then you take out the guy who can help them win. It's
okay. All right.
I just think it's interesting that Carson Wentz is now going to be on the market, and be interesting to see who wants to take on that contract and what belief there is in him. But he clearly wants out now, has made that known, and Philadelphia will have some work to do this. I mean, I guess not much work to do. I guess Jalen Hurts is the guy for you going forward probably. But, that was bad, and so intentional, and there was just really no two ways about it. It was, I know Joe Judge of the Giants went on a rant about how disrespectful it was to the game. Not like a yelling and screaming thing, but just he sounded like disappointed, that others would go to those lengths to do what the Eagles were doing. So, I mean, you did have this is a good and a bad thing, but Grayland Arnold and Jamison Houston were starting, but they shouldn't be starting. So, it's two Baylor players getting a start, but that also was part of, purposely not trying to put your best out there.
All right, so Cowboys know in the offseason, Paul, you're going to put together a list, a graphic of the top 5 things they need to do. Obviously, the Dak Prescott contract, getting that tidied up and moving on. Who are they going to keep it? Is no one going to be? Okay, there you are. Yeah. Okay, right there.
Yeah, so these are my issues.
Thank you.
Is Dak Prescott's contract, which is obvious. I mean, you don't need to go, figure it out, Cowboys.
I mean, dude, it's been 2 years.
Is he your guy or is he not your guy? And just get it done. Mike Nolan's status is a big thing because that's going to affect how you draft players and what you do going forward, because the biggest thing they didn't have this year was a defensive identity. If Mike Nolan's the defensive coordinator going forward, and I can't imagine that he is just based on how historically bad their defense was, then you have to really start drafting players that fit his scheme. Jalen Smith, you can save $7 million against the cap if he's a post-June 1st cut, and he has not played well. Tyron Smith's future. How does that affect the draft? Because if Tyron Smith's not long for the team and not long for the NFL, you really have to start thinking about protecting Dak Prescott's blind side again. And then Zeke Elliott. On the way up, on the way down, is he the same? What's going on with Zeke?
I had written down some notes about him. He had some explosive years. The 1 year under 1,000 yards was his second or third. Third year, I guess he was suspended. He's under 1,000 yards. This year, he scored 6 touchdowns. That touchdown he scored yesterday, and there was also a 3rd and 3, and he got a pass off in the flat. I mean, he can still hurt you, but he just can't do it constantly like he was. It's 5. The running back's lifespan. Sometimes it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Remember Sean Alexander just disappeared? I'm not saying he's there, but it just like Father Time wins that battle.
I don't even know if it's Father Time. I just don't know that Zeke's got the best approach anymore either. I don't know that he's certainly not the leader on your team. I think he's a guy who's a leader in certain ways, but it's not his football team, and you kind of like him to be the dude. And, even with all the stuff around Dak, you would like Zeke to kind of be that guy for you, and he's really just kind of not. As much as he may do behind the scenes that we don't see. It was a weird year for him. I'm sure the weird offseason probably played into it, but then again, there's a lot of running backs who are much lower rated than Zeke Elliott who came out and had a really good year.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mike McCoy, yeah.
I don't know what the deal is with him exactly, but the Dak contract thing, my God, dude, we've been talking about it for 2 years. 2 years of talking about another man's money. I don't like to talk about another man's money really in general anyways, although it's part of the sports profession and discussing it. But to talk about someone's money for 2 years and nothing has changed, it's just ridiculous. Either he's your quarterback or he's not. Well, at some point, he's got to sign a contract. I know you don't have to technically do it right now, but my God, make a decision.
The problem might be the Cowboys do want him, but they want him for that extra year, and that's a sticking point, right, Paul? Blank or get off the pot, as they say.
They could have done that. The Cowboys are usually over-enthusiastic about this stuff. And with Dak, it's
Jalen Smith got a new contract like that.
And speaking of him.
You know why Jalen Smith did? Because he understood, look, if I go in and tell them I'll sign an extension, I want to do it, they'll just go, here you go.
Right. It's different circumstances because Dak has the power to negotiate, and I get all of that, but I'm just so tired of that story. Think about how long they've been talking about this and all of the twists and turns that have all amounted to the same exact result, which is nothing. And it's just, I know part of it's the media and you got to have things to talk about, but man, I'm so tired of hearing it.
I'm tired of it too. Michael Gelkin posted this. Mike McCarthy today, I have no concerns about Zeke. I think he's still a big-time player, will continue to be featured component in our offense. But you wonder if that is a $16 million a year running back in your offense.
Yes, that's the biggest question you got to answer. Is Zeke worth $16 million if he's not going to? And again, I'm willing to say, like, let's give it another year and see if it was just the offensive line and how tragic that was for a good chunk of the season. But you do have to be realistic about it. And what I worry about Mike McCarthy is, to me, he doesn't seem realistic about a lot of things. I'll just give you case in point. The not reviewing the call yesterday that would have kept the Giants at a field goal range, which made the Cowboys have to score a touchdown at the end of the game instead of kicking a field goal, which they showed yesterday.
I'd like to know whose job it was to let him know faster. But he's not an offensive coordinator. He doesn't call plays anymore. He's not the defensive coordinator. So he's a manager. So if you're a manager, you have to be sharp enough to know that's part of what you do. You have two challenges, either use them or not. But that's somebody in the booth you wonder.
I think he thought he's used 2 this year. Maybe he thought that's what it was.
Yeah.
I used him up weeks ago.
Unlike Digger Phelps, who would use 6 timeouts, leave him with the last 2 minutes of a game down 20. All right. We will have much more tomorrow. But, that NFL playoffs. All right. Kansas City, and who wins the NFC?
Green Bay.
Green Bay? Huh?
Yeah,
I think the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing.
I remember the
Washington football team. No, they don't have an offense to be able to do that.
They got to play Tom Brady. I wonder if they get after Brady a little bit. You know?
I'm sure they'll get after him. But I don't know if it'll be enough.
They have so many weapons. They have so many weapons. That was a great story, even though an awful game with Ron Rivera with overcoming cancer, and then Alex Smith overcoming 18 or 19 surgeries. And
I thought it was
he can barely move.
Really cool what his wife did with the old bracelet he used to use.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many people saw that, but the old, gigantic contraption that he had to wear on his leg for a good long while to reset it and do whatever else. She actually took that and turned it into a makeshift Lombardi trophy, and it's really neat looking. It's not exactly the same, but it's a cool alternate version of the Lombardi trophy just to commemorate what he went through. I thought that was really neat.
All right, tomorrow at 11 o'clock, it'll be JD joining Drake Toll. Drake runs the mothership for 3 hours from 11 to 2, and, of course, Armstrong will be here as well. They launched that new show, Perfect Day, with breaking news. We appreciate Dave Aranda helping us by doing that on their debut day. Also, thanks to R.C. Slocum, Hardin Simmons head coach Jesse Burleson, Jeff Call from the Deseret, the news BYU reporter, Bob Stoll, former UTEP football coach, Evan Miyakawa on analytics, Rodney Webb at Denton Geyer, Phil Bennett, Mike Sherman, Eric Naleen on the Tom Herman firing, and Steve Sarkisian as their new head coach.
We can all learn from Tom Herman. Don't be an a-hole.
Yeah,
and you'll get to keep your job.
I got a lot more to say on that guy, but that was surprising still to me. I wasn't following, obviously, all the Texas rumors, but when I saw that news, it just seemed very abrupt, especially if the way the night ended a couple nights previous in the bowl win. So, I found Phil Bennett's comments to be really enlightening on Tom Herman. I mean, as far as how adamant Phil was about the middle finger thing that happened on signing day and how much that turned him off, and I guess turned a lot of other people off as well. I chalked it up just him being a dumbass, but clearly that did not sit well with a lot of people.
But you can't be a dumbass and be the head coach at the University of Texas. You can't do those things. And that's the thing was like, I didn't realize that. Well, then what did you think? You're supposedly in Mensa. What do you think the camera's doing?
Yeah, he's a little petulant at times. Tomorrow, again, we have a loaded up show, 11 to 2 with Drake and JD, and then Paul, Craig, and I. And we'll be back tomorrow from 3 until 6.
I wonder if that old recruiting coordinator's still putting out the little
Karen, is that Brian Carrington?
Yeah.
What's interesting is when they made that hire, immediately everyone starts to be worried about who they retain. Whoever Steve Sarkisian wants to retain, they should allow him to, not Chris Del Conte or some booster. Just like with Dave Aranda, he retained Sean Bell, he retained Joey McGuire. And, of course, a few others on the other staff, including David Wetzel. We'll see what happens now. So Joe Wickline officially, as we mentioned to start, the show is out. There was speculation he would be because of Jeff Grimes as an offensive line guy, and he is out. That's now been confirmed, and confirmed as we started this show. For Paul, Catalina, Armstrong, Sims, and Craig Smoak, thank you. Happy New Year. We're ready to go. Back tomorrow, SicEm365 Radio.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need Need an MRI? Ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. And this football season, you need to stop by on game day for curbside pickup or stop by their tent next to Sic'Em365 at Brazos Parking for your pregame refreshment. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has been proudly serving Texans across the state for over 60 years. Call 254-772-8090 to find an agent who will provide a free review of your auto, home, and life coverage.
Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physician of Baylor Athletics. Our doctors specialize in the diagnosis and treatment of any and all sports-related injuries. Celebrating over a decade of service in Central Texas, our doctors are equipped to handle a wide range of issues, whether it's your foot or ankle, orthopedic spine care, your hand or wrist, knee and shoulder pain, or if you're in need of our arthritis or total joint clinic. Come see us at the new Baylor Scott and White Ted and Sue Getterman Sports and Orthopedic Center. Trust the doctors at Baylor Trust, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. Our goal is to get you back in the game.